Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. And it's almost time. We are roughly 18 or so hours away from the kickoff of Georgia versus Clemson, 12 noon in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be a huge game. Me and Jordan are going to be breaking down the entire game, talking about interviews, all of that coming up in the show tonight. But before we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers, so if you guys could help us out with that, it'd be greatly appreciated. We are literally in the midst of college football season. Week 1 is almost here. It's actually already arrived. Started playing games on Thursday and Friday. So bring your friends, bring your college football buddies along. Tell them to subscribe to the channel. Tell them to come check us out. They do not have to be a Clemson fan, although it is a bonus. Also, hit that like button. This is a live video, so the likes always help us out in the YouTube algorithm world. So do that for us. And then, as always, we have the super chat feature available if you would like to support the channel in that way and support what me and Jordan do here on the All In Show. That would be greatly appreciated as well. And without further ado, let me bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Man, I'm fired up. First off, I mean, I was devastated I wasn't able to make it last week. The interview with Lou, I got to listen to that. Great stuff. And I'm just so excited because college football is back. This off season, we've talked about it. It's honestly it's gone by pretty fast for you and me. I think that this show has definitely helped. But man, there's nothing like just finally shutting up a bit. It's no longer talking season.
Right.
Trash talk, all of that. We're going to find out a lot about this team. We're going to find out a lot about the team we're playing. And football is finally back. College football is finally back. So I'm happy to be here. I'm ready to dive on in. It's been a very eventful off season. So I'm ready to see what the results are from that.
It has certainly been an eventful offseason, Jordan. I've had tons of fun. We've had fun on this show. We've talked about all sorts of stuff. But like you mentioned, man, talking season is officially over. I know we had week 0 last week, but this is the real week where college football officially kicks off, right? Games on Thursday. We got games tonight. We got a boatload of games tomorrow. I think we got some on Sunday and Monday.
Yep.
So just a full weekend, 5 days of nothing but college football. It's the greatest time of year, in my opinion, as a college football fan. Jordan, I'm glad to have you back. I missed you. I know the fans missed you, but I'm glad you're back, and it's going to be an amazing show tonight. We're going to have a lot of fun breaking down this matchup between Georgia and Clemson. Thank you to all the 22 people out here that are currently in the live chat for us. Hit that like button while you're in here. Appreciate all of you guys showing up. As you know, as we go through the show, we'll have a certain planned portion. And as we get to the end of the show, we will turn it over to you guys, and we will let you guys drive the show from there with your questions and comments and anything that you want us to talk about from there. So stay tuned for that towards the end of the show. And we always have a good time with that as well. So appreciate the Georgia fans in here already. That's always exciting. We got Jackson Johnson in here, our resident just guy that plugs everything we need him to plug in the chat for us, from Jordan's Twitter account to the various promotions that Mark Rogers is doing, the main channel's Twitter account, the Amazon link, all of that stuff. So thank you so much, Jackson Johnson, for getting in here and plugging all the things that we need you to plug. You're always here, and it's greatly appreciated. Jay's in here as well, always in here every single week. Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the support. Let's see who else we got in here. Uh, Adam Watford, thank you for showing up. Our boy Tiggs is in the house. Thank you for being here. John is in here. Dean is in here. Thank you for being in here. Appreciate all you guys. Shoot 'em 556. Georgia fan in here says, "What's up, guys? Looking forward to a good one tomorrow, as are we, and we're going to break all of it down." We got a first-time live watcher here, Jordan. So thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Glad you could finally make it to our live portion. But if you've been watching it on the rewatch, we greatly appreciate that as well. So I think I hit everybody who was in here. Appreciate everybody showing up. Ronald just got in here. So that's the last one. Thank you guys for showing up. Appreciate it. Hit that like button while you're in here. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Me and Jordan do this show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Where we'll break down every single game this year, and we'll do a post-game live video as well. So be on the lookout tomorrow. Win, lose, or draw, regardless of how amazing or how ugly it is, me and Jordan will be right here live right after the Clemson game to break it down for you guys and give our unfiltered thoughts immediately following the game. So if you guys remember back to the Duke game last year, Labor Day night, me and Jordan were right here. So when I say win, lose, or draw, regardless of how bad it is, we will definitely be here.
Oh, yeah.
Will be here with us too.
That was rock. Well, no, rock bottom was certainly. I think our post game after South Carolina, that's probably the worst one we've ever done in 2022. That was
that was tough.
I think that's the toughest one we've done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would have to agree.
I think you're muted, unless that's me.
Sorry, that's me. Thank you. Jackson Johnson in here with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much, man. You don't have to do that, but it is greatly appreciated. Would you like for Clemson/UGA to be every year? Would you like them to play every year? Jordan, what do you think?
I mean, I've always said that. It's a rivalry that unless you are, say, really 40 and older, you haven't really you didn't really get to experience the height of the Clemson Georgia rivalry. I mean, this was one of the biggest games of the year back in the 80s. And they used to play yearly. They've always had a close proximity to each other. Clemson is closer to Athens than it is to Columbia, if you can believe it. So that's how much, like, geographically these two universities and institutions have interacted with each other over the years, and that rivalry just kind of naturally developed. And there's been some really great moments on both sides, despite the record. And I would love to play Georgia every year. I think that would be an awesome game, and it would make a ton of money. Like when Clemson and Georgia play, like, people are going to tune in, especially nowadays, considering where both programs have been over the last 10 years. So, I mean, if you could make it logistically possible, absolutely.
Yeah, I am 100% with you, and Shoot 'em 556 mentions that Dabo mentioned it in his presser as well when he was asked by one of the media members that he would definitely like to see this game played every single year. And from a fan perspective, I second everything that you just said, Jordan. I 100% would love to see this matchup every single year. It's not an easy game, and it's tough to play, but just the excitement around it, the history of this rivalry, although I know, really, unless you were alive and watching college football in the 80s, you don't really get the rivalry of it, and most of us were not, us included, we're not around to see those things. But at the end of the day, I think just because geographically, I think it makes a lot of sense. They're constantly competing on the recruiting trail. I mean, you look at this Clemson roster, they got 20-plus kids from Georgia returning home for this game to go play against the University of Georgia, right, in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, right? So I mean, they're constantly competing off the field when it comes to the recruiting trail. So I think it makes perfect sense. So I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I guess you can't rule it out in the world of college football. Conference realignment is alive and well. It's not done, so we'll see where it all shakes out. Maybe that's a thing that can happen in the future. But as it stands right now, it will not happen. But I'm glad that both universities are still committed to making it happen, at least a couple times every decade or so. I think is what we're averaging at this point. So couldn't be more excited for the matchup tonight. But Jordan, before we get sidetracked with the comment section, before they pull us off our tracks, let's get into tonight's show, okay? Again, Jackson Johnson, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you supporting the show and plugging all the things that we need plugged. But at this point, we need to go ahead and get into the first segment of the night. And we're going to talk about, Jordan, the depth chart and the injury update for this game coming up for our Clemson Tigers and the Georgia Bulldogs. What did you think about the depth chart that was released this week?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about the depth chart.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
All right.
So now that that's done.
Yeah. Now that we're done with that, we're going to move on to our real first segment. Again, I do have some thoughts on the depth chart / injury report. I think it's hilarious that Clemson's posturing along with UGA at this point with all of the stuff. I know UGA kind of does this on a consistent basis where Kirby doesn't release depth charts and things like that. But, now, Clemson doesn't release a depth chart where they traditionally do this week, which I thought was kind of funny. And then another thing that I did want to get your thoughts on is like, what is up with this new, like, everybody's day-to-day thing? Unless they're out for the season, they're day-to-day. I don't think Kirby Smart does it as well. Dabo's like leaning into it super hard. Now he's always kind of been vague about injuries. But now he just, instead of being vague about it, he's just like everybody's day-to-day. And his definition of day-to-day, per his words, is could be a day, could be a week, could be a month, could be longer. So day-to-day really tells you nothing at this point.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's just, I don't know. It's the new trend, not really the new trend, but more and more coaches have done it because there's nothing incentivizing you to release injury information, nothing at all. I saw that the SEC made an agreement that teams have to release availability reports, but that's only for conference games. So Georgia has they don't have a timeline for when they'll probably release their depth chart like around the same time Clemson does, maybe an hour or so before the game.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But we're not going to really find out much of anything about who's playing and who's actually, available until we're right up, to kick off. So that's the reality of it. It's gamesmanship. And I understand it. I think for a game like this, because both programs, like this is not a game where you're playing like Charleston Southern and it's like, you're going to come in and expect to win by at least 30 points or something like that. This is a game where, both teams are going to be pulling out all the stops to win this game. And so you got to do whatever you can, whatever little advantage, or uncertainty that you might be able to leverage. That's what you're going to do. Like Georgia, with Georgia, it's like, it's Trevor Etienne. Is he playing or is he suspended? Right. Stuff like that. For Clemson, we've talked about Shelton Lewis and Jaden Lucas and their status, and both teams have certain game plans, depending on who's playing, and so you're gonna play with that and do whatever you can to sort of get any sort of edge that possible. Then that's just kind of how it is for these types of games.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense, but I think it's so funny. When the two coaches, both Kirby and Dabo, just like refuse to give any sort of injury information outside of it's like a super long-term thing. Like I think Kirby came out about the running back Robinson that had to have surgery on his turf toe. Yeah. And then Dabo obviously gave us the information about the 3 players that are out for the season. So I think that was super, super interesting. It's funny just to see the 2 sides posturing back and forth. And, like you said, we'll probably get a depth chart an hour before kickoff, which it won't really matter at that point. We're just going to have to wait until they run out on the field and see who's healthy. Like you say, Clemson's got some question marks there. Is Jaden Lucas ready? Is Shelton Lewis ready? That's a big question mark for Clemson because there's a lot of young talent behind them, but talent that's unproven and unexperienced and hasn't really taken college snaps before.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you consider you already lost one of your depth pieces for the season, Miles Oliver. So
absolutely.
The numbers are start to get a little interesting if you can't get at least one of them to go.
Not necessarily thin at corner. I think there's plenty of depth there, but it's just really young with 0 college experience.
The Ashton Hamptons, Corey Gibsons of the world, they're going to have to play.
We've heard all the reports about Ashton Hampton and how amazing he's looked and the size. And, I mean, he just looks like like your typical NFL cornerback already as a freshman. But, again, he's still a true freshman. He's going to make mistakes if he's asked to play big-time minutes, especially against a team like Georgia, which is always your concern. And I know Georgia's got some concerns at the running back position because of Robinson, who's now out with the turf toe. They got the other Robinson who's coming back off of a serious injury, hasn't played in a while. And then, obviously, the Trevor Etienne thing. Who knows if he's going to play? I'm assuming he's going to play. That's just my assumption. But, again.
I think you game plan,
if you're Clemson, you have to game plan like he's playing.
I kind of think he won't, but you game plan for that. You need to be prepared for him to be out there, even if he doesn't 100%. Actually end up playing.
Yeah, so not a lot of updates. Just thought we'd throw that kind of ha-ha joke in there to kick off the show and pretend like we were going to break down these mythical depth charts that both Clemson and Georgia released. I love how they tweeted out a picture of just a blank depth chart for both teams. Like, absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's just it's pretty funny to me. I love it. But moving on, we got 59 people in the live chat right now. Hey, guys, while you're in here, hit that like button for us. Appreciate all you guys showing up. Get your comments in the comment section. Me and Jordan at the end of the show, we'll turn the show over to you guys. We'll answer your questions. We'll respond to your comments for as long as we possibly can. We get to as many as we can. And also consider subscribing while you're here. We do this show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. It's called The All-In Show. And tonight we're obviously breaking down the big game coming up tomorrow at noon against the Georgia Bulldogs. But, Jordan, the next topic that I wanted to cover tonight is kind of the player and the coaches' interviews that we've seen throughout this week. We've seen Kirby Smart obviously give an interview and talk about the Georgia Bulldogs and things like that. On the Clemson side, we heard from not only Dabo, but we heard from both offense and defense coordinators, Wes Goodwin, Garrett Riley, and we heard from a bunch of Clemson players, Cade Klubnik, Barrett Carter, Adam Randall, DeMonte Capehart, Maffa, Tate. The list goes on and on. So all that information that has come out this week from Dabo's 2 interviews, Kirby Smart's interview, all the coordinators and player interviews, anything that stood out to you leading into this massive game between Georgia and Clemson?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like significant in terms of like nuggets of information. They really didn't, they really didn't, delve into that. But I do think, like, at least on the Clemson side of things, there is, you do get the sense there is a very quiet confidence about them. They feel like they can compete in this game.
Yeah.
They know what the point spread says. They know what the national media thinks about this game. All of that. But they do feel like they can compete in this game. And I mean, that's the mentality you have to have in a game like this when you're playing the consensus #1 team in the country. I'm really interested to see kind of how that carries over. This has been an off season of really, really a different intensity, I guess is the way to say it, than maybe the past couple of years. I think the Dabo you saw when they were 4-4, and the outlook of the season was pretty bleak. When Dabo basically tore into everybody, it also coincided with the Tyler from Spartanburg call. There was a very different air about the program the rest of that season, and from everything I've heard, that's kind of carried over into the offseason. And I think that's kind of why I feel like the players have this kind of air of confidence to them, because I think they've been through the fire this offseason. As far as nobody's job is safe. You're gonna give 100%, 110%, or you're not gonna play, or you can go find somewhere else to play. That's kind of been the mentality. It's been almost, I don't want to say scorched earth, because I don't want to make it sound like the players were suffering or anything, but it's been an intense offseason. And
right.
I think they learned a lot about themselves in spring, and I think they've found out even more about themselves in fall. So I think they do feel like they've been properly prepared for a game like this, where the culture at the team they're about to play is everything is about the grind, and the intensity at which that Georgia goes about doing things. I mean, and they carry that mentality into the game, and that's kind of, you're going to have to be able to match that in a matchup like this. So that's kind of the air, the vibes I got when listening to the players. They're not worried about the perception or anything like that. They're just going out there, and they're going to play like they believe they can win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made a lot of good points there, and just listening to the players talk is really what I focus on, because you can kind of get the vibes from the players and kind of where they're at, and just listening to the defensive guys like Khalil Barnes and Barrett Carter. And those guys kind of talk. They do have a quiet confidence about themselves. And it seems that there was kind of a switch this offseason. And what all went into that, I'm sure we'll never really know. You don't get the full picture behind the scenes of what happens in programs. But part of it was, last season. You heard, I think it was Barrett Carter that referenced, we've been using last season as fuel, and the start to the season that they had last year, going 4-4. I mean, I can't remember a last time a Clemson team started that poorly in a season. I mean, losing 4 ACC games is it's unacceptable at a program like Clemson, where Dabo has built it to, right? Yeah. So I think that's part of it, and the players feel that. And then they went on that 5-game run at the end of the season where it didn't always look pretty, but they did enough to get the job done. And I think that gave them some confidence and some momentum heading into this season. And some of the other things that I heard, and it wasn't just from the offensive linemen, but I heard Adam Randall in his interview talk about the Matt Luke effect, if you will, on this team, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, and not just challenging the offensive line, but challenging the offense as a whole, and really bringing a different level of intensity to their preparation and their practice every single day, and instilling what Randall said was confidence in the offense, and making them believe that they can, they can compete. They are, who we think they are. They are those kind of players. They just need to go out there and play ball, and play with confidence, and play with speed, and trust the process, and trust the system that Garrett Riley is installing and that he's running at Clemson. So I thought that was very interesting, because I've heard it from a couple players. You've heard it from a lot of the offensive linemen, but I thought it was interesting to hear some of the receivers talk about it, and specifically Adam Randall talk about how much effect Matt Luke has had on this team already in his short time with the Tigers. And you just hear the intensity that he brings to the table. And I think that has paid dividends for this team in the offseason. Now, we'll see how it translates on the field. That remains to be seen. But I think he has made a point to challenge not just the offensive line, but the offense in general, to challenge them to go out there and compete every single day, and to play like they know they can play. So thought I found that interesting. The defensive side of the ball, I found it interesting that obviously Barrett Carter is going to be wearing the green dot helmet. He's going to be the quarterback of the defense, if you will, making all the calls. And the second person on defense, not that they could be on the field together, there can only be one on the field at a time, but Sammy Brown, and that's probably more so for the special teams that he's going to be playing a lot in. But just found it very interesting that, you know, we know Sammy Brown came in physically ready to play day one at Clemson, but clearly he showed the coaches enough that they trust him with that green dot, which will probably be used mainly on, you know, special teams, but also could be used to give Barrett Carter a breather throughout the season. So that's really interesting. That stood out to me. And then just the rhetoric that every player kind of touched on with Dabo and him just preaching to the team, you got to be playoff ready. Game one, play one.
Game one,
right?
yeah.
Game one, play one. You got to be playoff ready, because essentially this is a playoff game. Not in the sense that if you lose, your season's over and you got no shot at the 12-team playoff or anything like that. But Georgia's the best team in the country. They're the number one team in the country for a reason. They have been for the past 3 seasons. If they win this game tomorrow, that's their 40th consecutive regular season win.
Yep.
That's insane. I mean, just think about that stat for a second. The 40th consecutive regular season win for the Georgia Bulldogs if they win tomorrow against the Clemson Tigers. That's insane. So that's the caliber of team that you're facing. So there better be a different type of intensity. It sounds like that has happened this offseason, and it's encouraging. It's encouraging to hear the guys talk about Cade and to hear Cade in his interview just be very matter-of-fact about the way that he's approaching this season, and the way that he's approaching it, I think, is the best possible way, and it's one day at a time. I'm not focused on tomorrow. I'm focused on what can I do today to become a better quarterback for this team, to become a better leader for this team. And I think that's all good things. Marcus Tate, man, I saw his interview with Gramlich and McLean on their podcast. Dude, that dude fired me up. Like, he's an awesome interview. And I can't wait to see him play this year, because he seems ready to rip heads off.
Yeah, man. And it's funny because it kind of is coming full circle for him. Because if you remember, Marcus Tate as a true freshman, you know what his first game was?
Yeah,
that 2021 opener against Georgia.
And he got tore up from the floor up.
Yes, he did. He looked like a true freshman. Yeah,
absolutely. That'll happen.
I felt so bad for him in that game.
That'll happen when you got that freaking 2020 UGA defensive line coming at you.
Yeah. Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt. Yeah, that was a that was a game, all right. But it's really cool for him, because he's developed into a really nice player. Just barring when he's healthy, at least. And so I'm really excited to see kind of the just kind of the growth. It's kind of a cool little story. But yeah, I mean he's a guy that they're going to be leaning on a ton. He's one of the older guys in the room. He's like other than Walker Parks, who's been here forever. Marcus Tate, he's one of the senior leaders of this group now, and so a lot is going to be leaning on him from a leadership standpoint, and he seems ready for it. He seems ready for that role. So that was it was cool to listen to him as well. And I think he has. It's never easy playing Georgia, but I don't think it'll be quite like what it was when he was a freshman. So that's good.
They don't have that 2021 defensive line anymore. Although, there's no shortage of talent at Georgia. So don't nobody go out there feeling bad for them like their freaking poverty along the defensive line. No one's saying that.
Yeah, far from the truth, for sure.
They got plenty of talent. It just isn't what it was that year, which it would be hard to maintain that level no matter how well you recruit. I mean, that was just a disgusting defensive line group, and they went on to do great things. So just go look in the NFL. They're littered all over the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they are. A lot of them playing for the Eagles.
The Eagles did just like kind of transplant Georgia's defensive line and be like, all right, yeah, we like that. We're just going to take that over here.
Yeah.
But good on them. But yeah, those are kind of the vibes that I got from the Clemson, coaches, or excuse me, the Clemson players. What did you think about Garrett Riley, Wes Goodwin? What kind of vibes did you kind of feel from there? Garrett Riley, I mean, let's be honest, he had a rough season last year.
Oh, yeah.
That offense did not look anything close to what anyone thought it would be. Even probably the most pessimistic amongst us didn't think the Clemson offense would look quite that bad under Garrett Riley, albeit year one. I don't think anyone was out there predicting that. But it didn't go well for him. And now here he sits in year two with a returning quarterback and some good pieces at wide receiver, a room that's finally healthy, what looks to be an improved offensive line with Matt Luke coming on board. So what did you think about the vibe that he kind of gave off? And then Wes Goodwin, he's kind of always a calm, cool, collected individual and just kind of answers questions very monotone and kind of moves on. So what were your thoughts about our two coordinators and what kind of vibes did you get from their interviews?
Yeah, I mean, Garrett, he seems like a guy that's been very pleased with the progress that this group has made just from last season. I really think he's excited. You can tell like he doesn't get super amped up, but you can tell he feels a lot differently about just kind of the pieces he has to work with. And we've talked about it. Like this group has a chance to be really damn good. I mean, I think with the improved offensive line, the second year progression from Cade, the receivers and tight ends that I think this is the best group you've had in quite some time. Like all of that put together, and you have a chance to be really good. Will it manifest itself tomorrow? Maybe not. But as far as the long-term outlook for this season, I think he feels really, really strongly about where they are. So it's good to listen to him. And Wes, you know how he is. And you talked about it. He's a ball coach. Like it's funny because you'll hear him talk in interviews, and then like Clemson media will post like videos of him in the film room, and like they sound like two different people. He's just very like when it comes to ball talk, all of a sudden the light bulb comes on, and he's just like he's talking a mile a minute, and you can there's an air of confident, like extreme confidence.
Yes.
He's unlike any defensive coordinator I think we've had in quite some time, just from a personality standpoint. Because Brent Venables, it was always he had that intensity a lot of the time, like but Wes, it's more he turns it on, and when he's in his element, he looks like a different person. Brent was kind of the same guy everywhere. So that's but yeah, Wes, I think he's really confident in his defense. We'll see kind of what the personnel looks like for tomorrow because of the questions on the back seven. I don't want to say back seven, but back 4 or 5. But yeah, I think kind of similar to Garrett Riley. I feel good. He feels good about the long-term outlook for this group. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, I mean, Garrett Riley sounds much more confident than he did in the small amount of interviews that we got him last season. Yeah. I remember that interview it might have been about mid-season, where the reporter asked Garrett Riley, hey, why does this Clemson offense look basically nothing like your TCU offense? And he said he attributed to, some personnel things and some other things. but essentially saying, hey, we can't run that stuff right now. We're not there. And that's kind of around that Notre Dame game where they kind of switched gears. And Phil Maffa just, is probably still running and scoring touchdowns against Notre Dame in their nightmares. Sorry, Will, if you're in here, but it's true. And that was kind of the turning point. But if you notice, Clemson went back to that old zone blocking scheme that they've run for so long, and they went away from what Garrett Riley traditionally likes to do. And it was just simply you got to credit Garrett Riley. That's not easy to do as an offensive coordinator, to be like, hey, we can't run my stuff. Let's go to this that they're comfortable with. We just got to put ourselves in position to win games. And that's what they did. But it sounds like this offseason that they're finally starting to click. The offensive line is starting to be able to do the things that he needs them to do. The skill positions are healthy enough so that them and Cade can start building some continuity, start building some chemistry together so that they can be able to perform in the way that they need to. So it appears that he's much more confident in calling and being able to run his offense like he wants to this season. Again, we'll find out very quickly tomorrow if that's the case and if the proper growth and the proper steps have been made this offseason like we've been told. You will not be able to hide it in this game. We will find out if Clemson's offense has improved. There will be no question when the clock hits zeros, if you will, in the fourth quarter on whether Clemson's offense has improved or not. There will be no questions. And that's part of the reason I'm so excited about this game. One, it's exciting just to play Georgia. I mean, Who doesn't want to open up with the number one team in the country? I mean, yeah, you're probably high percentage chance you're going to get beat. There's a chance that you get kind of beat badly on national television. But at the same time, from a competitive standpoint, who doesn't want to open up with the best team in the country? And also from a Clemson standpoint and where we've been the past 3 seasons with a completely inept offense, that everything looks difficult. I want them to be challenged week 1. Let's go find out if the growth is real. Let's go find out if what we've been told is real. And we'll find out very quickly in this game. It will not take very long for us to figure out if our offense is truly improved. And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and you just think about what this program under Dabo Swinney was built on. I mean, this is a program. This is still a very proud program, and that believes it should be competing with the best of the best. And so, I don't expect them to come out and lay an egg as far as like competitiveness and competitive drive is concerned. So, like, I mean, these are the types of games that Clemson was built on, and the run that they went on, that we went on. It was built on playing games like this, big time matchups against, whether it was against the SEC, within the conference, national championships, college football playoffs. It was all about those big time wins, and that's why we have the graveyard of ranked teams that they beat away from home. Yeah. So these are the types of games that Clemson thrives in and wants to be a part of. So we'll find out really quickly kind of where they are and whether they're close to getting back to where they want to be.
Right. Absolutely. Cannot wait for it. Cannot wait for noon tomorrow. Like I said at the top of the show, 18 or so hours away from kickoff, and we will have a lot of questions answered. And frankly, we get to watch a really good, 2 really good programs face off in a massive college football game in week 1, which that's what all fans want to see, man. So we're going to see it. We got 81 people in the live chat right now. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Hit that like button while you're in here. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do a weekly show every Friday, 5:30 p.m. called The All In Show. That's this show you're on right here. We're currently breaking down the Georgia Bulldogs versus Clemson matchup happening at noon tomorrow in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We also will be doing a post-game live video for each Clemson game immediately following the game right here on this channel every single week of this season. So stay tuned for that as well. We also post videos throughout the week of cut-ups of our live show. So hope you guys will consider sticking around and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget, we got the Super Chat feature available. If you would like to support the channel in that way, it would be greatly appreciated. And Jordan, let's go ahead. We've talked a lot about the interviews. We've talked a lot about the mythical depth charts that me and you broke down at the top of the show that were non-existent. But I think now it's time to just dive into the offenses and the defense, how they match up, the special teams. Let's just dive into Clemson versus UGA. And I want to start it off with Clemson's offense versus UGA's defense. And, you know, what strengths, what weaknesses you see on both sides, what are possible weaknesses to be exploited. What's kind of just your general thoughts on the matchup of this Clemson offense that we've talked about so much this offseason about the growth that has happened behind the scenes, and we finally got a wide receiver group that's healthy. And, oh, by the way, we hired in Matt Luke, and he's going to get our offensive line right, and we're going to play a little bit better this season up front and give Cade a little bit more time to make decisions. And Cade went out to Texas and went out to California and got reps out there with a QB coach, and he went to the Manning passing camp, and, you know, he's talked to mentors and just tried to mentally prepare for this season. And then on the UGA side of the ball, the defense, we all know what UGA's standard on defense is, and Kirby Smart, one of the greatest defensive coordinators, if not the greatest, in the entire country. Everybody knows what he did at Alabama, and everybody knows what UGA's defenses look like since he's been there. But they're not without question marks along their defense either, particularly their interior of their defensive line. Maybe one of their cornerback positions. Linebackers are absolutely out of this world for them. No weakness there. They could probably roll out freaking 6 of those dudes and be just fine. But just what do you think about this matchup? Is there any way for Clemson to exploit anything for that UGA defense?
Yeah, this is certainly the matchup that is going to decide whether Clemson is in this game for 4 quarters, or, you know, it's a two plus score Georgia win. For Clemson, it really is about, you're going to need some guys to live up to the hype. You know, I think first and foremost, everything that starts with beating Georgia, you have to be able to run the ball, at least somewhat. It's easier said than done. Georgia has a very, it's not 2021 Georgia's front 7, but they're still very, very good. And, you know, running on them is certainly a challenge. But the teams that have successfully done it have been able to stay in the game, and in some cases even beat them, like Alabama last year. So I mean, first and foremost, it starts with this offensive line and getting pushed in the run game. Just in some respect, you have to make Georgia respect. You have to make Georgia respect your run game, and you have to be able to get 2-3 plus yards at minimum, like that. And that's not even a great, you know, that's not that, like 3 yards per carry is not great. But honestly, you would take that because it at least forces Georgia to respect respect your run game at least a little bit. So I really think that's what it starts with. And from there, you have to build off of your run game and be able to hit explosive plays in the pass game. And that's kind of where that needs to be the biggest growth for this from last season. Clemson was one of the worst teams in the country as far as explosive pass plays. I believe they were like 121st. It's not good. It's not good. And it's been a consistent issue the last 3 seasons. We've talked about the wide receiver room. We've talked about this tight end room. We think you have the pieces to be an explosive passing offense this year. But Cade's got to see it. Cade's got to hit it. And this offensive line has to give him time. And that's easier said than done.
Right.
I think the good thing is Georgia is not a heavy blitz team. I know people, when they think of Georgia, they think of the front 7. They get a lot of pressures, but they don't don't necessarily send a lot of guys.
Right.
And so I think giving your off, if Georgia is going to rush 3 or 4, you're going to have to protect. You have to win those downs because, other than that, you're going to be stuck, because then if they can win up front, sending 3 or 4 guys, like everything else is going to be shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not like I said, they're not a heavy blitz team, but they get a lot of pressures. So really, the offensive line, you got to hold up.
Right.
And that, again, that we're going to see the growth. You can't get bullied physically. I think Clemson is in a better spot from an offensive line standpoint, as far as, the overall makeup of this group and the body type. I think is more suited to play a defensive line like Georgia's than maybe it was a few years ago. So now it's about, you have to match that physical. You have to match that size with physicality up front, and I think that's ultimately going to decide whether or not you're able to be a productive offense in this game, because there's not going to be many opportunities to score in this game. You're going to have to hit on them when they do show up. So that being said, long-winded, you have to hit explosive plays in the passing game, because dinking and dunking like Clemson did last year, you're not going to. It's going to be the same story as it was last year. You're going to have to be able to hit big plays, and so
100%.
Theo Williams, Adam Randall, Tyler Brown, and Bryant Wesco, all this group of receivers is going to have to get open. Jake Brenning still has to be involved as well in the passing game, because if not, it's gonna be a long day.
Yeah, look, you hit the nail on the head there, Jordan, and I couldn't agree more. This Clemson offense, and it's cliche, and it's one of those things where you say it and everybody's like, yeah, duh, but it truly starts in the trenches. If you go back to that 2021 matchup between Georgia and Clemson, where was that game lost?
You were overmatched.
It was very clear from the first drive that, we're in trouble. Like, we are not going to be able to move the ball on this defense, because we can't run the ball, and DJ's got no time to throw the ball. We have no options on offense, essentially, because that defensive line, and the worst part of it is they didn't even need to blitz to get pressure. They were just sending 4 dudes and completely destroying our offensive line.
I can still visualize that first sack that DJ took in that game. They sent 3. It was a 3-man rush that got home. You were so overmatched in that game, it's not even funny. I think you're in a much better spot now, especially since you're not starting any true freshman at guard, or having an emergency starter at center. So I think you're bigger, more physical, more powerful up front than you were.
And
obviously you're not playing, and Georgia's defensive line isn't as good as that one was. So
right, and we already mentioned Marcus Tate. That's a true freshman that started in that game. He was one of the ones that got abused by that 2021 Georgia defensive line.
He looked lost, man. I remember after that game going and watching the tape. He had no idea where he was going, and he got around a lot. That's one of the worst. Like that's probably the worst possible start for your first ever start, like ever. Like, and this wasn't even his fault. We had to play him because he was there. We had nobody else.
Yeah, and if you've ever been an offensive lineman, I think you've been there before. Like if you've played, at a high level in high school or whatever, like you go against that one team where like they just got dudes up front, and from snap one, when they hit you, you're like, oh boy, tonight's gonna suck. It's not gonna be good.
That must have been what went through their heads.
Yeah, after the first play, they were all looking at each other like, hey DJ, buckle up, buddy. You better throw that ball away.
Barbecue chicken, man.
It ain't happening. It ain't happening tonight. But the reason I mentioned that is it 100% is going to start in the trenches, and I think there's somewhat of an inverse of the game in 2021 where Clemson's really got that experience along the offensive line. 200 plus starts between all of those guys, right? And I know they've underperformed and all of that, but I have to think that Matt Luke's going to have some effect on that group. They just seem very locked in. They seem intense. And they're going to have to be able to hold up at least some against that Georgia defensive line. We are going to have to run the ball a respectable amount in this game. If you just let Georgia know that you can't run the ball against them and they can just pin their ears back and come after Cade, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a very long day because they're going to lock down all your receivers. Cade's going to have no time, and it's just going to be a repeat of 2021, right? So Clemson's offensive line, along with our boy Phil Maffa, is going to have to grind out some yards, and they're not going to be easy. This defense is not going to be easy to run against. You mentioned Alabama kind of exposing, if you will. It took a team at the level of Alabama to do it, the interior of this Georgia offensive line. So there are plays to be had there, right? But you got to execute at a very high level to even be able to expose that small weakness that they may have, right?
And not only do you have to win on the defense, you have to get to the second level because those Georgia linebackers, they fly to the ball. They're going to feel they have a very good understanding of their run. They're well coached. I mean,
100%
is their defensive coordinator / linebackers coach. Like and Kirby certainly has his role, but that is very well coached and not only are they well coached, but they're extremely athletic. So you have to be able to get up to the second level as well. So that's like that makes your job even harder. Not only do you have to win up front against the Warren Brinsons of the world, the Michael Williams on the edge, you have to be able to get up to Smile Munden, and so it is a tough task and a tough ask for this group. But that's the only way to be able to.
It's the only way. You have to consistently produce respectable numbers on the ground so that they respect your ability to run. And then you mentioned the second biggest part. Clemson has to create explosive plays. You have to. You are not 100%. You are not going to go out there for 4 quarters and dink and dunk this Georgia defense down the field and score points. It ain't happening. So the little behind the line, little swing passes, all this stuff, we just got through talking about how elite that linebacker core is for Georgia. Guess who's running sideline to sideline? Those dudes. And they are not going to let you just get out in the flats over there and turn a 2-yard pass into a 30-yard gain. They're not going to do it. It's not going to consistently happen. I'm not saying you don't break 1 or 2 here or there, but consistently getting the ball, consistently moving a drive down the field for 4 quarters that way is not going to happen. So you have to establish that ground game, and Cade has to be able to push the ball down the field. And that's twofold, right? The offensive line, or that's threefold, if you will. The offensive line has to be able to hold up and pass, bro, long enough for him to survey the field. Cade has to read the defense, find the right receiver, and make the throw. And the receiver has to get separation against this defensive back group. All of that, much easier said than done. But without explosive plays, Clemson's got 0 chance in this game. 0 chance. And I hate to say that as a Clemson fan. But with the level of team that you're playing, with the level of defense that you're going to go up against tomorrow, you have to be able to create explosive plays. You can't dink and dunk it down the field with defenses like this. So that's kind of the keys for Clemson. Can they kind of run on the interior of that defensive line? Can they kind of get some yards on the ground? And can they create explosive plays? I think those 2 things are kind of the keys to this Clemson offense being able to move the ball and put up points against this Georgia defense. If they can't do those 2 things, it's all over. It's all over. And you can't turn the ball over.
That too.
We talked about it last season. Unfortunately, every single post-game live, because I don't know if you guys know this in the chat, but Clemson turned the ball over in every single game last season, from the Duke game all the way to the Kentucky game in the bowl. every single game in between, we turned the ball over. Whether it was a fumble, an interception, most of the times it was multiple of each.
Yeah.
And most of the times it was inside the 5-yard line, goal to go.
Yep.
Or it was a strip sack fumble, 70-yard touchdown against freaking Florida State to send it to overtime and lose the game. I mean, just catastrophic turn. The turnovers can't happen. Against this Georgia team, you can't do it. You can't give that offense extra possessions and give that defense momentum. So no turnovers and the other things that we already discussed in length.
Easier said than done. That's for sure.
A lot easier said than done. It's very easy to get on here and talk about, all they got to do is this. Duh, it's too easy. But, when you line up on the field and those fans are screaming and the lights are on and all of that stuff, it's a lot harder to do it than it is to just sit here and talk about it. So
and especially on the explosive plays part, that's the one thing that I think you have to. Especially considering kind of where Georgia is personnel wise, they have some questions at corner. Talented guys. Dalen Everett has played a lot of football, but the guys behind him, Daniel Harris. You don't really have they don't have that proven guy, and Dalen Everett struggled at times last year. So you gotta try get these guys in one-on-one, and you have if they beat you, if they're better than your guy, if Dalen Everett lines up across Adam Randall and you throw a go ball and he just straps him up, oh well. But you have to make Georgia respect that aspect of your game as well. And we've talked about it. If this receiver room wants to be what we think they have the potential to be, those are the plays you're going to have to be able to make consistently, not just in this game, but throughout the season. So, all right, you're muted, I think.
Thank you. 100%. That's what's got to happen, and it's a tall task for Clemson's offense, and we'll see how they do. 73 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate you guys showing up. We got a couple more segments to get into tonight, and then we are going to turn the show over to the live chat section. So get your comments in there, get your questions in there. We'll start starring them as we're going through our planned portion of the show. And then at the end, we'll turn it over to you guys. So stay tuned for that. We always have a lot of fun chopping it up and interacting with you guys at the end of the show. All right, Jordan, it's time to talk about the inverse of what we just talked about. Clemson's defense versus this Georgia offense. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of matchups here. This is the strength of Clemson's team. It has been for a long time. Especially the past 3 seasons as the offenses look completely inept, like they're running in quicksand and they can't do anything. This Clemson defense has gotten us through some dark times, led by none other than our linebacker, Barrett Carter, this season. He has been a vocal leader this offseason and really looks locked in, looks ready to, really carry this team. And he's going to be the quarterback of the defense. He's going to have the green dot on his helmet. He's going to be calling the plays for them. And there's a lot of experience on this defense. Interior defensive line for Clemson, huge strength. Both the guys that are going to run out there first and the 4 or 5 guys behind those 2 guys that are going to run out there first. Defensive end position, very talented for the first 2 guys, proven commodity, and the first 2 guys that are going to run out there, unproven depth behind them, albeit talented depth. Linebacker situation, couldn't be better for us. Safety situation, I don't think could be better for us. Cornerback situation, a little bit dicey, just because the 2 guys that were battling for the cornerback number 2 position opposite of Terrell are quote-unquote day-to-day, according to Dabo. What that means, I don't know. That could mean they're going to run out there and start against UGA and they're completely fine, or they're not. And that is Shelton Lewis and Jaden Lucas. So without those 2 guys, we're going to be relying on probably true freshmen outside of Brandon Strozier, right? That's the only other guy with a little bit of experience there. Outside of that, first guy that's probably going to run out there is true freshman Ashton Hampton, right? Big dude, NFL style body, looks the part, but again, is a true freshman, right? Now, opposite this UGA offense, returning offensive coordinator, returning quarterback, and Beck, Heisman frontrunner heading into the season. Everybody's talked about him. Did lose his 2 top targets from last season. So obviously replacing Bowers and McConkey is a huge task for Georgia. So how do they replace that? How well do they replace that? Their offensive line is super experienced. Again, we brought up the questions they have at running back. Is Etienne going to play? Is he not going to play? They've already lost a running back to turf toe, had to have surgery. The guy behind him, the other Robinson kid, how well is he? Is he truly ready, right? He spent a long time injured. He's finally healthy, back from injury. How well is he going to be able to step in and fill that role? And behind him, I think, is a true freshman. So that's kind of their running back situation. So what are your thoughts on this particular matchup, kind of Clemson, the strength of Clemson's team and the defense, and then UGA's offense, who a year ago put up ridiculous numbers, and obviously they think that they're primed to put up similar numbers, if not better numbers, this season. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and you talked about the Georgia offense. I don't think they got enough love last season for how good they are, probably just because of how their season sort of ended. But they were a very, very good offense last year, guys. I mean, especially from a per drive number, they were like tops in the country in a lot of metrics. I believe they were first in points per drive. They are a very efficient offense. Carson Beck is extremely accurate with the football, gets the ball out quick. I think he didn't get a lot of love nationally, but he quietly had a very, very strong season for them. And now I think people started to wake up kind of, after the debris had settled from, the SEC championship game and kind of heading into the offseason. They were like, oh, wow, Carson Beck was really, really good last year. So, this is a challenge, an extreme challenge for Clemson's defense. Georgia internally, they feel very confident about, the group that they have offensively. The pass catchers, they feel really strong about the guys that they brought in, out of the transfer portal, and some of the younger guys, Dominic Lovett, Dylan Bell. Obviously, they're not going to have Ra Thomas, but is what it is. At tight end, you've got Oscar Delp. They feel pretty strong. Colby Young, they brought in from Miami, who was kind of questionable a little while ago, but now it seems like he's going to be good to go. We saw him last year at Miami. He had a pretty nice game against Clemson. So this is a group that is extremely formidable on paper. And so my biggest question for Georgia's offense is, because they have some shiny toys, but we don't really know how they're going to look like playing together yet. We know the offensive line, they're projected to be one of the best in the country.
Yep.
New starter at center in Jared Wilson, but internally they feel really strongly about him and his NFL potential. So it's like, really, how does this offense gel in the first game against a talented Clemson defense? And so, I think the key for Clemson in this game is Mike Bobo is a guy that he loves quick. They love the quick game. That's one thing that I noticed a lot. Carson Beck had one of the shortest time to throw, in all of college football, but it wasn't because he was getting sacked or he was getting instant pressure. It was because he was getting the ball out quick. And what that says to me is, for Clemson, you got to tackle in this game. You cannot afford to miss tackles, because especially since Clemson is such a heavy man team, they play Clemson. That's Wes Goodwin's thing. He's very confident in his defensive backs. He's very confident in his linebackers and coverage. He likes to play a lot of man. And so that means you're going to, and I think against a team like Georgia, I mean, Carson Beck is not he's not some dual threat guy. So, you don't really have to worry too much about him scrambling, although he has made plays. He can make plays at times, but ultimately it's about making the tackle, because they have some really shifty guys. Dominic Lovett, Arian Smith, I didn't even mention. He's extremely fast in the open field,
yes.
Legit track speed. And the running backs are going to be featured at times in the pass game. You have to make tackles. They have to you have to get them down on first contact. You cannot afford them to get yards after the catch, because that is what they're going to want to do. The one thing that they did struggle with last year is hitting that deep ball consistently. Carson Beck is an extremely accurate quarterback from the short to intermediate, but the deep ball was hit or miss at times last year.
Right. Yep.
So I think you're gonna have to ask force Beck to hit those high level down the field throws.
Yes.
So that means coming up and making the tackle on a screen or a short hitch. You can't afford if you're letting them catch and get yards after the catch, they're not gonna even try you deep.
Yep.
And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing for this defense. And of course, even with Georgia's running back situation, they're going to want to run the ball. It's Kirby Smart. He always wants his teams to be run first. And Absolutely. So whether Trevor Etienne plays or not, they have some talented guys. Branson Robinson if anybody's ever seen him before, he's very physically impressive. Hasn't played a ton because of injuries, but he was legit one of the best high school running backs I've certainly seen. And so you don't let his breakout performance be against you. Nate Frazier, the true freshman, is a guy that they're extremely high on. Yep. Don't let his breakout game be against you. And then they also have Cash Jones, who I called him a dollar store Will Shipley to a Georgia friend of mine, just because he was a white running back, but he hasn't played a ton, but he's a guy that was kind of under the radar coming out of high school and has earned a role in the rotation. Don't let his breakout performance be against you. I think the Georgia's running backs are extremely talented, but not a lot of proven depth or proven experience, especially if Trevor Etienne can't go. So stopping the run and forcing Beck to beat you over the top. I think those are the things that you have to do, and so that means coming down and making tackles and not making it easy on them.
Right. Yeah. No. You made a lot of good points there, and really this defense is, again, you say it all the time, but it starts in the trenches, right? Those defensive tackles got to show up. You cannot allow, I think Christian mentioned it in the chat, limit explosive run plays. If you allow Georgia to really get comfortable and start chewing up yards on the ground, 5, 6, 7 yards a run, it's going to turn into a long night for you. I don't care how skilled and how talented Clemson defense is. So them defensive tackles and defensive ends, they're going to have to do their job, right? They're going to have to keep contained, keep things inside the pocket, right? Carson Beck's not a guy that's going to go out there and be anything close to a Lamar Jackson. He ain't going to run all over you, but he can escape the pocket and he can go get a first down when need be. So keeping contained, right? Keeping your rushing lanes when they're trying to put pressure on him is important, because he will leak out of that backfield, go pick up a couple yards and get out of bounds, right? So that's going to be important, limiting the running game, and then protecting. If you got to play one of those true freshman cornerbacks, protecting them, right? Whether that be a safety over top or whatever the case may be, right? And then just our linebackers doing what they do. You talked about them in the short and intermediate passing game, and that's where your linebackers and your nickel and Khalil Barnes, that's where they got to shine. They got to make those open field tackles, because, they lost, Lad McConkey, they lost Brock Bowers, but make no mistake, they recruit very well. Ain't nobody feeling bad for Georgia, okay, because they had some standout tight end and standout wide receiver go to the NFL. Nobody's feeling bad for them, because they got immense talent behind those guys that is going to roll in, right? And you mentioned a few of the guys there. So open field tackle is going to be huge. And that's always a tall task week one, right? Because, as much as you simulate it in practice, it's nothing like the game, right? And tackling, specifically in college football, because of no preseason games and things like that, tackling is always pretty ugly in week one with a number of teams typically in week one. You know, the ugliest you'll see the tackling in college football is week 0 and week 1. Just go ask Florida State and Georgia Tech for that matter. If any of you guys watched that game in Dublin, there was some terrible tackling in that game, right?
It was brutal.
Clemson's got to be locked in. Game 1, play 1, right, on defense and open field tackles. You cannot allow them to turn these short intermediate passes into 20 and 30-yard plays down the field because it'll kill you. And eliminating those explosive run plays, I think those are the keys for Clemson's defense. And I think if they can do those things, the rest of it will kind of take care of itself. You mentioned Carson Beck's struggle with the deep ball last season. That would be something that if I was a Georgia fan, I would expect him to improve upon year 2 as a starter. Just like we're expecting K to improve on things year 2 as a starter. So are the Georgia fans, but hopefully he hasn't improved on it for game 1.
Yeah. So my biggest and that's going to be even more important, especially if you consider that, you know, you might not have Shelton Lewis or I'll say this right now. I feel somewhat confident that we'll see Jaden Lucas tomorrow. Shelton Lewis, the outlook is I don't think he is. The outlook is, based off of the past couple of days, has seemed more positive, but I still don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to play. So I do think
he'll play. Is he truly healthy?
Yeah. You don't want to rush him out there. There's no.
You don't want a guy out there who's not ready to be out there because you're at the same disadvantage. Like, you're upperclassmen, you're experienced guys out there, but he's not 100%. So he's getting blown by because he can't physically perform to the level that he wants to, right? So that's always the question too, and those are the decisions that the coaches have to make and engage. Pros and cons for. But I'm like you. I think Jaden Lucas got a good chance of playing. I just hate that it was his shoulder that he's already had so many problems with. It's just like he just can't get that shoulder right for whatever reason. But it does sound like he's got a better chance, in my opinion, of playing than Shelton Lewis. So as long as one of them can go and be as close to 100% as possible, I'll feel a lot better about the cornerback position. But again, we might have to rely heavily on one of those true freshmen, and it's probably going to be Ashton Hampton that runs out there first.
Yeah. Because I don't expect Terrell and Lucas to play every snap. Like if somebody's got to come in and give them a breather. And Brandon Strozier is going to be one of those guys that pop in and give those dudes a breather. And Ashton Hampton's probably going to be another one of those guys that they're popping in and giving those guys a breather. Yep, absolutely. And I completely forgot. I hit on Oscar Delp a little bit, but they also have the Stanford transfer, Urisic.
I don't know how to say his name.
So I don't know how to say his name, but he was good at Stanford. Talented.
The Stanford transfer. I'm not going to try to say his name.
Good player. Very, very Urisic. I don't know. Very good player though. So Georgia. Oh no, Georgia has really good tight ends again. Oh well, but that's what you have to.
They get rid of freaking Brock Bowers and they got Oscar Delp out here, and
who Clemson recruited. So
recruited him very, very hard. So went after him. And then obviously the Stanford transfer that you mentioned, he's no slouch by any means. So they're in good hands there. I'm not saying either of those guys are Brock Bowers, but those two guys collectively could probably do a pretty good job of filling that gap. And the same thing at wide receiver. I don't think they have a Ladd McConkey necessarily right now on the roster to replace all of those targets and all of those yards and all of those big explosive plays.
They did rely on those two a lot. They meant a lot to that offense.
They have plenty of talented guys that could collectively probably fill those gaps. Yeah. So
it's about how they gel in week one. Because if there is, and because you have new pieces and new roles, like that could be a hang up for Georgia.
Yeah, and Georgia traditionally spreads the ball around anyway. Like last week when I was talking to Uncle Lou, he hit me with a stat that I had no idea was true, that Georgia's only had 1,000-yard receiver ever.
Oh yeah, that was Terrence Edwards, I think, way back in like 08. Or actually, it might have been 03 or something.
Yeah, I can't remember the year that he told me it was, but yeah, they've only had 1,000-yard receiver ever.
AJ Green didn't hit it. George Pickens never hit it.
Like, how do you have AJ Green and he don't hit 1,000 yards?
I don't know, man.
What?
Pretty crazy when you think about it. Even Brock Bowers never hit it.
I played against that dude in high school, and he was ridiculous. He killed us every single time. We got our doors blown off every time we played.
How did both in-state schools let AJ Green leave the state?
I have no idea, dude. I don't know. I don't know how South Carolina and Clemson let AJ Green go to the state of Georgia. But I'm sure Georgia says the same thing, because I mentioned earlier Clemson's got like 20 dudes from Georgia that are going back home to play. But AJ Green's different, man. You can't let that dude get out of the state. Yeah. But they did. They did. But yeah, it's just crazy to me. Like, I would have I've never, I don't know all of AJ Green's stats at Georgia, but if you would have asked me to bet on it, I'd have been like, yeah, of course he had 1,000-yard season. He's AJ Green. Of course he did. Nope. Guess not. I would have lost that bet 10 times out of 10.
I had heard that. I didn't realize it had been. I didn't realize that it was only one. I knew they hadn't had a 1,000-yard receiver in a long time, but I didn't realize it was one all time. So
yeah, just one, just one all time. My mind was blown. I was like, that can't be real.
How was that even? I mean, because you think about Clemson. I mean, we haven't had we're about to die because we haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since Amari Rogers in 2020.
Right. Yeah. We haven't had one in 4 years, and we feel like our program's falling apart.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
But then I guess last week talking to Uncle Lou, and then he just lists off like the bevy of running backs that they've had over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
and I was just like, holy moly.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you put it that way, it's like, okay, well, why throw it?
Yeah, why throw the ball? Why? You don't need to. Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, list goes on and on.
DeAndre Swift.
Swift. I mean, it's like, how do you have that? But I just thought that's such a mind-blowing and interesting stat at the same time. All right, Jordan, let's go ahead and wrap it up. The comparison of Georgia versus Clemson, at least when it comes to the on-the-field stuff with special teams. Not something that people typically spend a ton of time on, but I feel like this is going to be an important part of this game. This is where Clemson has made some gaffes over the past couple seasons with some trickery in that game that shall not be named against South Carolina, to our kicking woes from last season, calling somebody off the quote-unquote couch that was going to Wall Street in a week to be our starting kicker because we could not get a reliable kicker to kick field goals for us last year. And this offseason, the kicking game has been questioned once again. Obviously, you got Robert Gunn. You got Hoosier there, Nolan Hoosier. Robert Gunn was a true freshman last year. Nolan Hoosier's true freshman this year. Seems like he has taken the starting role, so starting a true freshman kicker. Gunn's still going to be handling kickoffs. We know what we got in Aiden Swanson at punter, at least. So that's a positive for the Clemson Tigers. You got a solid punter who's going to be very consistent for you. But as far as the kicking game goes, how do you feel about kind of the reports that have come out of camp? And then, how do you feel about that? And then obviously we don't know who's going to be our return guy. Dabo won't tell us. He said we got to wait until game time and see who runs out there. So we can't comment on the return game necessarily. But how do you feel about the kicking game? Do you feel like it's going to be more reliable than last season? Although, let's be fair, the kicking game came through in some pretty clutch situations as the season went on. So
Yeah.
let's not disparage it too much, but it was a less than ideal situation that we found ourselves in last year. So now we have two highly recruited kickers on scholarship. Jordan, is our kicking game in any better situation than it was a year ago?
I have no reason to say this, but I think so. I mean, I think just because you have more options, I think with Nolan Hooser winning the job, the reports were that he was just the most solid. I think he hit 80-something% of his field goals throughout camp. You know, I think that's certainly better than what you were last year. That's for sure. And I think he can only get better. I hate it for Robert Gunn because, you know, he talented kicker in his own right, hell of a leg, but you just didn't know where it was going. So, I mean, you at least have two options. So if one guy isn't performing, you don't have to go call up a graduate student to get off his couch and come play kicker like you did last year. So, I mean, I think that's good. Like, you can, if Nolan Hooser bombs, like, it doesn't hurt to give Robert Gunn another shot. So, yeah. I mean, I think just by virtue of having more options, you're in a better spot. But I do think Nolan Hooser is, just from out, he doesn't have the leg Robert Gunn has, but he has I believe he has the national high school record for field goals made. That's pretty crazy, and because he was just very steady and accurate. Well, not really because he had the biggest leg in the world. So, and I think that's what more than anything Clemson could have used last year, just being steady. If you had a steady kicker, you beat Florida State. I mean, it's probably too much of an extrapolation because, you know, they still would have got the ball back, but that you flat out, you know, missed a chip shot field goal that would have put you up in that game, and maybe that game doesn't go to overtime. So many other situations, just being solid at kicker throughout last year would have, you know, maybe you have different results. So I think if Nolan Hooser can be steady, hit everything from the, you know, 10 to 40 range, be consistent there, and then be and hit in the 40 to 50 range, like decently well, you should be good. I mean, I don't expect him to. I don't need the kicking game to be out there kicking 59-yard field goals like that Florida State kicker was.
Hey, shout out to that dude, man.
Yeah. What's funny, he's been there a long time.
Better be boosting up his NIL money because he even had a chance in that game.
It's so funny because I remember because I was at the Florida State game back in 2021, you know, the one where Will Shipley took over the game late. And that kicker was their starting kicker, and he was horrible. Horrible. And he had been bad the entire year. Right. I mean, it just goes to show you, I mean, like it really is, kicking really sometimes is just, you just get better just by doing it more.
Right.
I mean, and that was the case.
That holds true, I think, for kicking for everybody. If you look at some of Clemson's best kickers, they started out horrible.
Yeah. Chandler Catanzaro,
terrible kicker.
Horrible.
Turned out to be one of the greatest ones Clemson's ever had.
Yep.
You know,
BT Potter,
same thing. Started out horrible, ended up really, really good. So hopefully our boy Nolan can just start out good and stay good.
Yeah.
You know, but if not, we'll just turn to Robert Gunn and hopefully the trend stays true and he started out horrible and ends great.
Absolutely. And as far as the return game, guess we'll see. You know, kick return, like, I mean, maybe you see Jay Haynes out there. Maybe you see. I don't know if they're going to want to throw Tyler Brown up there.
I wouldn't. Yeah. I would not throw him out there. You got other options that can do that, man. Look, this is just my opinion.
They put Adam Randall there a couple times last year.
I hate when coaches throw like your bet, like not necessarily your best, but like one of your like key offensive pieces out to return kicks. I just like, can we not find somebody else on the roster? Like, there's no one else that can go out there and possibly get their head taken off fielding a kick other than like one of our starting wide receivers, like, or our starting running back, like Will Shipley. They used to put Will Shipley back there all the time. Like, can we not? Like,
let's
can
not
we
do
find
that.
somebody else? Can we find one of those young special team guys to like just catch the ball? And but again, I get it. Like, you want a playmaker there. You want a guy that can get loose and make the defense pay if they're not keeping their rushing lanes right and not covering the kick properly. But I cringe every time there's somebody out there that's like a key cog in the offense, because you just don't want to lose any of those guys. And that's where the injuries happen, is on those type of deals.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, we could see, we could see Jay Haynes. We could see Tink Kelly. Who knows?
John said Sammy Brown for punt returner.
Sammy Brown, he could, honestly.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. Go ahead and throw him out there as punt returner. I don't care.
I mean, you go look at his running back tape. Like, do you think anybody wants to tackle that in open space?
I wouldn't want to tackle Sammy Brown in open space. I'll probably hey, make a business decision.
Yeah. He can run now. That wouldn't be a horrible option, but I wouldn't play with him like that. I think you just get a guy you can afford to. That sounds terrible. Afford to lose, but I don't. I want Sammy Brown to get as much opportunities as possible.
It sounds bad, but like that's kind of the spirit behind what I'm saying. Like somebody that is not such an integral piece in your offense. Yeah. Let's put them out there. There's athletic people all over Clemson's roster. I guarantee it. Let's just be. I don't care. Stick them out there for 2 weeks and just make them do nothing but catch punts and kicks until they get good at it, and be like, all right, that's your job. Don't drop it.
Hey, put that walk-on kid, Parker Fulgham, the true freshman Parker Fulgham, the kid from Louisiana. Let's
see what he's got. But yeah, we'll see. Look, special teams. I don't know. I'm not super confident in our kicking game this year. I'm going to be completely honest. I know Nolan won the position, and I'm happy for him. But to me, every time Dabo was asked about it, it was just like this neck and neck competition where somebody wasn't really pulling away. And I would just feel more comfortable if somebody truly pulled away. And I know he said Nolan kind of pulled away in the end, but it gives me pause. It gives me concern that both of them may be inconsistent. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully Nolan goes out there and absolutely kills it and is the, model of consistency for kickers, if you will. Happy that Robert Gunn's still going to be taking care of the kickoffs, because we know 90% of the time he's just going to boom it out of the end zone and we don't have to worry about covering a kick, which is a luxury for sure. And then obviously I already talked about Aiden Swanson. No doubts there that he's going to give us good punts at least majority of the time. So not super confident about it, but I have hopes that
just don't let it kill you. Just don't let it kill you. We got
two highly recruited kickers. One of them's got to be able to put the ball through the uprights.
Exactly. Yeah. Just don't let special teams kill you. I think that ultimately at the end of the day, because I don't expect this to be a difference maker, but for this to be a big difference maker, unless you get something in the return game. But again, we don't know anything about what the return game is going to look like. We just have speculation. So we'll find out together tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know. I honestly have no clue who's going to run out there. Yeah. So it'll certainly be interesting, and we'll be on pins and needles waiting to see it. So, all right, we still got 61 people in the live chat. Stick around with us, guys. We got a couple more segments, and then we're going to get to the comments, I promise, and chop it up with you guys and answer your questions. Jordan, our next segment, we're going to talk a little best case, worst case, okay? So best case scenario for Clemson, come tomorrow, 12 noon, and then worst case for Clemson tomorrow. Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and kick it off with the best case scenario for Clemson football tomorrow. Let's say everything works in our favor. What does that look like? What's the best case scenario for Clemson tomorrow?
I think if everything works out in your favor, you can win this game. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not one of those. I know a lot. There's some people, probably, mostly Georgia fans that feel like Clemson has no shot in this game. But if you do get breaks in this game, Clemson can absolutely win this game. So, like, you want me to put like a score to, like a best case score to it? I don't really see a scenario barring like Georgia just flat out playing the worst game we've seen them play in like 4 years. That like you win going away.
But, what does the best case scenario look like? From a Clemson standpoint, how are they executing? And then you can put a score prediction to it if you want. If everything goes Clemson's way, sure.
Yeah. Well, it's not a score prediction. It's just what would that score if this was
if everything played out in Clemson's favor, what would that look like? How would the offense be executing? What would the defense look like? And then what do you envision that score should that fairy tale play out in real life?
Yeah, I think obviously that means you offensively you're able to move the ball, you're able to hit big plays. And defensively, you hold Carson Beck in check. They can't really run the ball as effectively as they want to, and their receivers don't really gel in game one. I think that would be like the 31-24 type victory. Like maybe Georgia will get some plays, but overall you control the game and you're winning up front. Like that's best case. I would say. I don't see a scenario where a realistic scenario where Clemson wins by double digits. So that would be best case for Clemson, I think.
What was your score prediction on that?
Like a 31-24, 31-23.
Yeah, I agree with that. And best case for me is just, I think that score prediction kind of makes sense. Best case scenario for Clemson if everything goes well, and what does that look like for Clemson? We're able to run the ball at a consistent clip, right? We're able to create those explosive plays that we're talking about. We're able to get pressure on Carson Beck. We're able to at least curb the Georgia running game on the defensive side of the ball, right? We're able to probably create a couple turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, right? Give our offense extra possessions to get those scores, right? It's not going to be perfect for Clemson's offense, but creating those explosive plays, being able to run the ball at a consistent enough clip to make Georgia respect it, and then that defense creating turnovers and getting after the quarterback. Tackles for loss, right? Tackling in open space, not allowing a 4-yard swing pass to turn into a 25-yard gain on, 3rd and 8. You know what I'm saying? So, and then worst case for me, Clemson goes out there and just like last season starts turning that ball over at the most inopportune times, right? I think that's where worst case scenario, that's where it gets away from Clemson very quickly. If you start turning that ball over, if you give this Georgia team extra possessions and make their defensive lives easier for them, it's going to be a long day for you, right? And a lack of explosive plays, right? Offensive line on roller skates, defensive lineman in Cade's lap every single time he drops back, right? That's worst case scenario for the Tigers. Also, the cornerback situation, the young guys aren't ready, right? We have to rely on some of those young cornerbacks. Our defense isn't getting pressure on Carson Beck, and he's just sitting back there surveying the field. He's going to pick apart our DBs every single day of the week if you allow that to happen. So that's kind of worst case scenario for me. And if I had to pick a score prediction for that, it would be very lopsided.
A lot to a little.
A whole lot to a little. I mean, what? 38, 41 to 3.
Yeah.
At that point, I mean, seriously, like I'm not joking. Like if that worst case scenario played out, that score would be a whole lot to it. I mean, Georgia would score as many as they want to.
Yeah.
At that point. So, again, hopefully that best case scenario that you painted plays out, and not my worst case scenario. But that's kind of worse than best case scenario, I think, for Clemson heading into the game tomorrow.
Absolutely. You know what's funny is somebody is going to clip this. We have a lot of people listening right now.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to clip that and think that one of the, like those are our score predictions, and they're going to like, see that Clemson fan said that Georgia's going to win 41-3, or that Clemson fan said that everything's going to go right for Clemson and they're going to win 31. Like, calm down.
They're going to kill us. They're going to kill us. That's okay though. Go ahead and clip it. It'll be all right. No big deal. But yeah, best case, worst case scenario for the Tigers heading into the game tomorrow is what we just covered for you guys. We got a super chat feature in here, our super chat. I want to get in here before we move on to our last topic. JT Brown says, "Hey guys, checking in. I'm just hoping the offense doesn't turn the ball over." Let's all hope for that, JT Brown. And I'll call that a win. Tough season opener. The Charleston/Somerville area is pulling for our guys. Go Tigers. Thank you for the $10 super chat, JT. Really appreciate your support of the channel.
Yeah. Shout out to Charleston. I know, you're probably – there's probably a good contingent of Gamecock fans that'll be hate watching this game too. So I know what that's like. So praying for you, JT. We're gonna. I think that if things go well, that's the bright side is you'll get to rub it in a lot of people's face. So
that's right. Yeah, especially being in Charleston. There's way too many Gamecock fans out there. It's disgusting.
Very disgusting.
Christian says, worst case, we look like NC State. If we look like NC State, we ain't gonna have a chance to win it at the end. I can tell you that.
That's for sure. That was a game. It was cool though. One of that Colombo kid for Western Carolina. I got a chance to know him. He went to my high school. He graduated with my little brother. Had no idea he was I had completely forgot that he was at Western. So then when I saw him catch like a third down slant on their first drive, I was like, ain't no way that's AJ, short little white 5'8" kid. He played quarterback on their middle school team, and then he was too small to play wide receiver, and so he played wide receiver in high school. I was like, look at him, and I think he had like 100 yards receiving last night, so that and a touchdown. So that was cool.
Nice.
It gave NC State all they could handle. Yeah,
for sure, no doubt about it. I was watching that game for a good portion last night, and I was like, what is going on? Like, man, these ACC teams coming out here and making us all look terrible. Hopefully we don't do that tomorrow. Oh, that would not be good. That would not be good at all. But, again, we'll see. 58 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you guys, if you have not already, hit that like button for us. Please, it really helps us out on these live videos. And also consider subscribing. We do this show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. We will also do a live post-game reaction to every Clemson game immediately following the game this season right here on this channel. So stay tuned for that. And you can come either laugh at us tomorrow when the game is over, or you can come celebrate with us tomorrow when the game is over. We'll see which one ends up happening. I vote for the celebration, but unfortunately, I don't have any way to affect that and make that happen.
Yeah. Oh, I would if I could. Well, both of us would, I'm sure.
Absolutely. No doubt. All right, Jordan, I think the time has come for us to get into our official picks for the Clemson-Georgia game. First pick we're going to do is the pick against the spread, okay? This game opened up at a 13.5-point favorite for the Georgia Bulldogs. Last I checked on ESPN before we hopped on, it was down to 11.5. So we will go with what that says right now. So obviously some money is coming in on Clemson, at least a little bit. Lines down to 11.5. So what are your thoughts on the spread? No score prediction yet. Just pick against the spread, 11.5. Are you taking Georgia minus 11.5? Or are you taking Clemson plus 11.5?
Yeah, this game is one of those where, for me, when I look at it, I think Clemson is. I think they're too proud of a program to play this game and not be competitive. I think Clemson. I think I like Clemson in the points. I think they're going to cover in this game. I really do. I know we talked about the challenges that Clemson is going to have to face on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
Georgia has to play us too, and this is a first game, first week of the season. Neither team is going to be what they are, say, in November. But I think from a physical standpoint, I think Clemson is in the best shape to play in this type of matchup that they've been in a long time. And with that being said, I think Clemson's going to cover. I really do.
Well, Jordan, I think that's a super smart pick because I'm on your side. I am taking excuse me, our Clemson Tigers 11.5 plus 11.5 all day. I think our Clemson Tigers keep this game closer than that 11.5 as far as the spread we're talking. I think they're definitely capable of keeping the game much closer than a lot of people are giving them credit for out there. I've seen a lot of people with 2+ touchdown predictions against the Tigers. I just think kind of what you said, there's a pride element here when it comes to not only this Clemson Tiger team, but Dabo Swinney, this coaching staff. Everybody's heard it all offseason, right? Everybody's heard it for 3+ years. Clemson's going the wrong direction. They're not using the transfer portal. They don't pay enough in NIL, so on and so forth, right? They've heard all the noise. All these players have heard all the noise. They've made it clear in interviews that they hear it and that there's a narrative out there, right? And look, by no means am I saying that Clemson is, the best team in the country or anything like that, or they're going to go on to win the national title. But I guarantee you that this Clemson team will not go out there and lay down for Georgia. They're not going to go out there with a defeated mentality. If everything is true from the interviews and the vibe that we've gotten off the players, is they truly believe that they can go out there and compete with Georgia. And that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter what we believe. It matters what those coaches and those players believe that are inside that Clemson locker room. We can make any prediction we want. But unless they believe it and how they feel is truly all that matters. And the vibe that I get is they truly believe that they can compete against this Georgia team, and I think they can. So for those reasons, I will take Clemson plus 11.5, and I think they definitely cover this game.
Love it, man. They're going to call us homers in the chat, in the comment section. Is what it is.
We're Clemson fans, so we're naturally homers. I mean, make no mistake about it. I mean, we are Clemson homers. I try to make as objective as picks as I possibly can, but at the end of the day, I'm a Clemson fan. I am emotionally invested in this program. I care a lot whether they win or lose. So it is hard to take some of those bias out of it. But at the end of the day, I think both me and Jordan try to make as logical as predictions as we possibly can. And with that said, Jordan, it's score prediction time. Talking season is officially over. We have to give our first score prediction of the season. And now is the time. Again, 65 people in the live chat. You guys go ahead and get your score predictions in the live chat for us while we're doing ours. Georgia, Clemson, 12 noon, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, massive game. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. Aflac kickoff game. What's your score prediction, Jordan? Who you got? Who you got, and what's the score?
One thing that I've seen a ton, just about this game, just comparisons. I've seen some people compare this to the opener that Georgia had with Oregon a couple of years ago, and it's like Georgia's going to come out there and just steamroll them. I don't see it that way for a lot of reasons. First of all, we're talking about, Georgia was facing a first-year head coach, not just like first year at his job at that particular school. His first year first year being a head coach, and a guy who had worked for Kirby and Dan Lanning. And obviously that Oregon team got better over the course of the year. I don't think that's what this matchup is at all, for a lot of reasons. And certainly because Clemson is more comfortable playing in Atlanta than a team from the Pacific Northwest. Man, I'm really about to do this. I'm taking Clemson in the upset.
Oh, let's go.
27-24.
Let's go.
I have gone back and forth throughout the week. Before I felt like, oh man, I think Clemson's going to keep it close, but there's no chance. But it's just a gut feeling, man. They're gonna hate me for this one. It's just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
But I think Clemson wins tomorrow. Competitive, tight game. I think you're going to see the improvements that this offense has made, and I think defensively you'll be able to limit Georgia enough that this is a 4-quarter game that you pull out. 27-24. That's my score prediction. It's official.
I like it. That is freaking fantastic, Jordan. I'm so happy you did that. And
going out on it's the first game of the season, y'all. Like, this is the only time. This is like for every team in college football. This is the only time that everybody gets to be a homer and optimistic about their outlook for the season, because like no games have been played. Well, unless you're like Florida State, but you get what I'm saying. It's week 1, and like I get the vibe I've gotten from this team, this staff, the mentality that they've gone into this season.
Yeah,
I think Clemson's going to announce themselves back to the college football world tomorrow. I will be here tomorrow to eat my medicine if that proves to be false. So that's just I'm going straight off vibes, baby. Sometimes like no games have been played. We don't really have anything to go off of. Sometimes that's how football works out. So that's where I'm at. 27-24. Clemson.
I like it. I do like it. I've been back and forth on this game so much. And there's a lot of emotions for me heading into tomorrow. And it feels truly like an old school Clemson game. Dabo Swinney does the best at playing the disrespect card. That's where he thrives. And I think this Clemson team is ready to show the world that they're going to get it trending back in the right direction. But I still came out with Georgia coming on top slightly. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think Clemson's going to show the world that they can compete with the best of the college football world has to offer. I do not think it's going to be a blowout in either direction. I just don't see that happening. I think there's too much pride for both programs. There's too much talent for both programs. Georgia, according to that 247 composite team ranking, has the number 2 roster in the country. Well, I know a lot of people like to talk about Clemson not using the transfer portal and all that stuff, but guess what? Clemson's got the 5th ranked roster in the country. That's pretty stellar for a team that averages the 13 to 10 range when it comes to recruiting every single year. There's a ton of talent on this team. I think Clemson comes out with a bunch of energy. I just don't know if they have enough to get it done against this Georgia team, and I got them falling short of winning. I got Clemson 21, Georgia 24, and Georgia just goes on goes on and just slightly tops the Tigers, and it's going to be a tough game to watch. It's going to be a very nerve-wracking game to watch. But dang it, even though I just picked against my Tigers, and I hate I did it, that's just what I feel. I feel like Georgia's going to come out on top. But I'm excited to watch this Clemson Tiger team come play. I'm excited to see these two teams face off. I'm excited to see what this offense looks like after a long offseason of talking. I'm excited to see what this defense looks like. Barrett Carter with seemingly a renewed dedication and a renewed focus coming into this season versus how he came into last season truly is his team now that he is the true undisputed leader of that defense as Jeremiah Trotter transitioned to the NFL. I just like the makeup of this Clemson team this year. And I think it's going to be a special year, but I think unfortunately we come up short in week 1. But that's okay. You don't have to win this game for Clemson to have the type of season that they want to have.
Right.
But you have to show up. You have to show that you belong. And you got to be able to punch Georgia in the mouth during this game. And I think that's what Clemson does. But I do think Georgia gets it done in the end. I think they're a little too much for the Tigers. And that's my pick.
Hey, that's where I was like before like 3 p.m. yesterday. Then I had, and for the people who are listening, because the majority of people don't watch us regularly, like,
yeah,
I never go out on a limb like this. Like I don't think I've made this bold of a prediction in our entire time.
No,
really,
no, I don't think so.
I've picked us to lose a good bit. So this is just a gut feeling of mine. There's really no there's no analysis other than I think Clemson's roster in general has been undervalued throughout this offseason and the build up to this game.
I would agree.
And we're talking about two of the three active head coaches that have won national titles, and the only two that have won multiple national titles going at it.
Yes.
I don't think Clemson is as overmatched as some people think. And right. I'm banking on the offensive improvements and the personnel improvements that they have made this offseason.
Well, don't forget the coaching improvements.
And the coaching, especially the coaching improvements. Good Lord.
I think that's the biggest impact.
Yeah.
It's great to add a TJ Moore. Yeah, it's great to add a Brian Wesco to that wide receiver room that has struggled for 3 seasons. But I think the biggest impact is adding guys like Garrett Riley, Matt Luke, Chris Rumpf. Adding those guys, those new voices in the room for Clemson has seemed to change the offseason for Clemson. I talked about how Matt Lucas had an impact on not just that offensive line, but really the entire offensive group and defense as well. And we all know what Chris Rumpf has done with that defensive end group since he got on campus as well. So I don't think the coaching hires can be overstated at this point. I think they're very important. And I think Dabo Swinney showed that he wants this program to get trending back in the right direction because of the hires that he made and because of the people that he got rid of in order for those hires to be made. That's never easy. Everybody thinks it's easy. Everybody on the outside looking in is like, oh, just fire him. That's not necessarily the easiest thing. Even though it's the right thing to do for the program, it doesn't make it easy.
Right.
Firing Brandon Streeter for Dabo was not easy. Firing, the offensive line guy, his name's escaping
Thomas
me.
Austin, yeah.
Thomas Austin, thank you. That wasn't easy. That's a former player, right? Guy that's been in the program for quite some time. So those aren't easy, but he's showing that he cares and that he wants the program to move in the right direction. So as much as I think the talent has gotten better at Clemson this offseason, I think the coaching's gotten even more than the talent has increased. for the positive for the Tigers. So we'll see. We'll see how it all works out on Monday.
Yeah, and hey, we could both be wrong and be talking about how Georgia put up 35.
Yeah, we could talk about we could be sitting here tomorrow at approximately 3:30 in the afternoon, breaking down another 28+ loss like we did last season against Duke.
Yeah,
that's completely possible. There's
Please
a world
God.
where that happens, right? Let's just hope it's not this world we currently live in, because I don't want to open up the season with another 28-point loss.
It's fun. Unbelievable says, I don't even think he believes Clemson can win. There's no way he really thinks. It's kind of funny. His the name is ironic. Unbelievable. Listen, man. I mean, you don't know me personally, but I never say anything that I don't 100% believe.
I can assure you. I can assure you that I know Jordan, and he has never come on this show to make a pick just to be a contrarian or just to make a splash and make a clip and something that's going to get spread around the internet. I've never seen him do it. So if he makes the pick, he believes in it. And we don't let each other know our picks before we get on this show.
I had no idea what you were going to say.
Yeah, I had no clue Jordan was going to pick Clemson. He had no clue I was going to pick UGA.
Yeah. So, listen, and we will both be here tomorrow.
100%.
If Georgia wins by 3 touchdowns, come dunk on us in the live stream tomorrow.
Also, if Clemson ends up winning, unbelievable, still show up, because we will.
Yes, please.
We will show up regardless.
Keep the same energy.
We will show up regardless.
Yeah.
We will be here. There will be a post-game live show. So if you think Jordan's pick is ridiculous and you end up being right, you can come rag on us. And if his pick ends up being true, then you got to come take your medicine too, because we're always here to take ours. And it's all in good fun. This is college football. Trash talk is a part of what makes college football so unique and so much fun. SEC Dog says, what coordinator will y'all be putting on a telephone poll after week 1? It's never Dabo's fault. Yeah.
Listen, no matter what happens, I'm not. It's not going to be on the court. I'm not going to be talking about coordinators after one week or coaching changes. So I don't. If the Georgia game is a disaster,
hey,
it doesn't tell us. It'll tell us how far we still need to go, maybe in some respects, but sometimes you just play a bad game that you otherwise could have been competitive in, like that. I mean, you talk about that Oregon opener a couple of years ago. Oregon was a good team that year, but that was their worst game they played by far. I think Oregon won like 11 games and wound up winning like 11 games. So it's like, even if Clemson gets like splattered in this game, like I'm not going to overreact to it and be like, oh man, things are not going well. I mean, you're playing the number 1 team in the country. The history is certainly not on your side from a head-to-head standpoint, and just the fact that the AP number 1 team has not lost their opener in like 30 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's been a long time.
Crazy. The number 1 team in the country is not lost in pretty much forever at this point.
Yeah. So I mean, I fully understand I'm going out on a limb here, but I listen. The line is coming down for a reason. So I'm not saying that Vegas is the end all be all, but I'm not the only one that feels like Clemson has a chance in this game for sure. So I'm at peace. I'm at peace with my prediction, and I'm at peace for the consequences if I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
I've always been that way. I took my medicine when we lost to South Carolina a couple of years ago. You and I both did.
And it was not fun. But I picked Georgia in the game. But I still think Clemson keeps it much closer than that 11.5 line. I don't think Georgia just comes in and steamrolls Clemson like a lot of people think they're going to. Don't worry, SEC dog. Jordan will not disappear after week 1. We'll be here all season. Win, lose, or draw, we will be here.
Listen, like, why would I disappear after losing to the number 1 team in the country? Like, Clemson has had far more embarrassing losses than a loss to Georgia.
If we didn't disappear after week 1 last year when we lost by 28 to Duke, we ain't going nowhere. If we
were on the main channel. We did our post-game show on the main Voice of College Football channel.
Man,
you and me were sitting there with Mark. Like, we were so miserable.
Oh man, that was
brutal. I want you guys to go. Like, you probably have to scroll a long way, but I think there's a way to search it. But man, if you go find that Clemson Duke post-game
or that South Carolina post-game,
or that Clemson South Carolina game from 2022, we were like. I don't know how we did that show, man. We were gonna. I felt like I wanted it. Well, I can't say that, but we might get demonetized if I say what I felt like doing at that time. Yeah. So, like, man, if Clemson loses tomorrow, or even if Clemson gets blown out, do your worst, man. That's how I am. So, yeah. But I think we'll leave it at that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's leave the predictions at that. Let them fall where they may. We will be here at approximately 3:30 tomorrow to either celebrate because Jordan got it right, or take our medicine because there'll be a bunch of Georgia people in here laughing at us saying I told you so.
If Clemson wins tomorrow, the big ass grin on my face. Oh, yeah. I might open the show. Like you don't even have to introduce me. Just like put my face on the screen. Like just solo.
I'll take myself off the screen and I'll just leave you up there for a couple minutes.
And I won't even say anything. It'll be a grin. It'll just be a smile. Now I'm messing.
Oh man, I'm hoping it happens. I'm hoping it happens. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Let's get into these questions.
I know SEC dog. He's just in here talking his trash like he always does, and I love it. And I know he'll be here tomorrow if they lose. You better be SEC dog. Don't run away. But no,
SEC dog will be. He'll be
here.
He's always here. He's always here.
Talking his mess about Georgia. So it's all in good fun. It's part of the reason we love college football so much. But the time has come, everyone. The much anticipated, throwing it to the comment section, throwing it to the live chat. So go ahead. Get your types in the comment section. Get your questions in there. Get your comments, and me and Jordan are going to start going through for a little bit here and answer as many questions as we can. Again, we're up against the 2-hour mark already. We cannot get to all these questions. We got 60+ people in the live chat. So if you want to be sure that your comment is read, go ahead and hit that super chat feature and support the channel in that way, and also guarantees that we'll read and respond to your question. Your question or your comment. But Jordan, let's go ahead and get to some of these questions.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see. I think I've properly.
I know you will, SEC dog. I know you'll be here, win, lose, or draw.
Well, actually, we have a ton of questions starred. So let me get to those. Adam earlier in the show, he said I did find it interesting that David Ajomame probably isn't getting redshirted. Dabo, oh my goodness, I have something in my eye I can't read. Talked like he would be getting a lot more work than we thought. Maybe he's a little further along than Keith or Jay. I don't think it's necessarily that he's further along than Keith or Jay, but I think they're very pleased with the progress that he's made in fall camp, because he came in the spring and like the physical talent was certainly there, but just the fundamentals, holding on to the football, like some of the little things that they needed him to be able to get right in order for him to be playable. It seems like they do feel better about where he is. So I do think you might see I don't know if you'll see him tomorrow. Quite frankly, I don't know if you trust that a true freshman in this spot. Really, I mean, unless he's not Will Shipley where he just came in and was ready to go. He needed some time. So I don't know if you see him tomorrow, but I think you'll see him in spots during the year for sure.
Yeah.
Sven was in here earlier. He said, look at him. What's up, Bowman? I missed the AAA shows. Yeah, man. Good times. you've been in this community a long time. Like most people here don't even know what you're talking about. But that was the old college football podcast I used to do with me and a few other buddies. Yeah, man, good times. And you were one of our regulars, so good to see you.
OG Jordan supporter right there.
Yeah, very OG. Ronald says, is it possible for Clemson's offense to be much improved, but it doesn't look like it in this game? Yeah, I think so. Again, there are a lot of reasons to think that, with Cade being a second year in the system and the weapons that you feel like you have and the improvement that you'll make in the offensive line, it just may not be enough at this point to be competitive in a game against Georgia. That's certainly possible. I obviously didn't pick that, but it's possible. So
yeah, I mean, look, this is the best defense that Clemson's going to play all season, outside of any sort of postseason, whatever happens there. If Clemson has a good enough season to earn themselves into the playoffs, right? But as far as the game scheduled right now, this is the best defense they're going to face. So yeah, it's entirely possible that Georgia makes Clemson's offense look worse than it really is. But Clemson's got to show improvement. Even though you're playing one of the best teams in the country and probably, come season's end, probably a top 5-ish defense, you still got to show improvement.
Yeah, perception matters
at this point.
Yeah, perception certainly matters a ton here.
Yeah, you got to look like you belong. I've said it for 3+ weeks now. Clemson has to look like they belong on that field. And that the offense is part of that. I don't care. You're playing Georgia's defense. No one cares.
Yeah.
And
listen, there are teams with less talent than Clemson that put up competent offensive performances against Georgia Tech. Ran for 200 yards on them last year. Right. Missouri ran decently well against Georgia. Obviously, Alabama notwithstanding, like South Carolina was up 14-3 on Georgia at halftime. It's like South Carolina with and what not 2022 South Carolina where they had Juice Wells and Spencer Rattler was slinging it all over the place those final two games. No, this was last year's South Carolina team that had all those injuries on the offensive line and had one good receiver and no running back depth. They were up 14-3 on Georgia at halftime. Obviously, again, we can't. Last year only carries so much weight, but I'm just saying. We brought in Garrett Riley to be able to scheme up and create a competent offensive game plan against not just against the ACC, but against the best teams in the country. So yeah, perception certainly matters here, and I think you have the pieces to do it. Dion, shout out to Deion Sanders. He's here in the chat. I feel honored. I can't believe he's hell of a game last night.
I didn't know Dion watched our show. That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't know either. But
hey Dion, you better stop playing. I thought y'all gonna lose that game now.
Yeah, I know.
You better get right. And please talk to your offensive line, Dion, because
run the damn ball when the other team has one timeout. It's like a minute 30. Why are you throwing the football?
That offensive line is going to get your son killed.
Oh man, yeah. If Shador and those receivers weren't so damn good,
that's the FCS team, bro.
Yeah,
hitting him like that,
and it's not even North Dakota State of like old. Like they're
not as good. They're not as dominant as they used to be before their coach left.
Yeah,
that's not even the same coach that rattled off all those FCS national titles. So
right, get it together, Dion. But he did say we can agree on something. Both UGA and Clemson both hate USC Junior, and both of them own them in the all-time record.
Yeah, for sure. We do have an enemy in common. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Cade Klubdick says, I forgot what player said this, but I love that name. I forgot what player said this, but I think it was Marcus Tate. He said the defense and offense were exposing each other all camp, so there would be no surprises against Georgia. I mean, all the talk out of camp has been the offense has given the defense a lot of hell. That was not what we were hearing last year. That's for sure.
Now, the contrarian would be like,
okay, maybe our defense sucks.
Yeah, maybe our defense sucks.
Maybe. Listen, there are no guarantees in college football. I mean, we've given this defense the benefit of the doubt. We really like where they are, personnel wise, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that they come out and just aren't. They just aren't what they've been in previous
looking at the returning personnel on Clemson's defense, you got really no reason to doubt that they'll be a really good defense again. It's like, yes, they did. Look, they lost some immense talent on that defense, but there was, you lose a guy like, Xavier Thomas, but Peter Woods pushes out and takes his job, right? Or fills that gap, right?
Yeah.
You got to feel comfortable with that. So you replaced your big losses with not necessarily equal talent, but really talented, proven players. Wade Woods stepping in at linebacker, right? A guy that has played a ton.
He's already played a ton of football.
He's already played a ton and proven himself on the field. Now he's just stepping into a bigger role now that Jeremiah Trotter has gone to the NFL and that gap's there. So because of the personnel returning and because it's safety, we got guys back that were injured last season that were a Sherrod Koval. We get that dude back. I mean, he got hurt last season. Dabo talked about it. Sherrod Koval got hurt last season in practice the week that he was going to become a starter, and he tore his ACL. Right? So you got guys like that coming out. You got a Tyler Venables, which is essentially a coach on the field. I mean, he knows the defense in and out. So it's –
and then you've got a Kylan Griffin who, because of those injuries – played a lot of football the back half of the year.
Yeah, he got so much work and so much experience, and now
made a big interception against Notre Dame. He made some big plays down the stretch.
And now, he's a true sophomore, but he played a ton as a freshman.
Yeah.
So he's not your traditional true sophomore, right? Same thing with Terrell, right? Avion Terrell over there. Because of injuries and things, he had to play a lot. So that's the reason that I think the defense is fine. But again, I mean, they could not be nearly as good as we're giving them credit for.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know. It's week one. So you're just going off of media reports and coaches' interviews and players' interviews and maybe the spring game. And, you're not going off a lot. You don't have a lot to go off of. So we'll see.
We will see. I lost it. There it is. I'm dumb. Adam says Adam Randall's locked in. Hope he can stay healthy and put it all together. Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about it ad nauseum with this group. This group of receivers. The biggest thing for the ceiling of this group is if Adam Randall becomes what we all thought he would be coming out of high school. That it means staying healthy, and it means fully developing and using that 6'5", 230-pound frame that runs probably a 4.4 or something, like ridiculous type of.
He's quicker than you think he is.
Yeah, he's not slow. He has the DK Metcalf build. He just hasn't produced or AJ Brown build. He just hasn't produced like those.
He does have the DJ Metcalf build. The thing that I like about Randall is, I listened to his interview today, and he just sounds way more comfortable, way more confident heading into this season. And let's just hope this is the season that he kind of puts it all together. Because if he does, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah. Everything else.
Everybody out there is like, no one knows any receiver on Clemson. They got no good receivers. Believe me, there's talent there.
Because and we said it, Adam Randall being that true dominant outside threat. Oh my! Imagine the opportunities that open up for Antonio Williams, for Tyler Brown, Troy Stellato, Bryant Wesco, Cole Turner, TJ Moore. imagine like everything else. Oh, and then you consider, you know, what you have at tight end. Like all of a sudden, this passing game can be one of the better ones in the country, especially if Adam Randall becomes that guy. And so if Adam Randall has a coming out party against Georgia, whew, man, I'm going to be telling some lies. But the narratives I'm going to be pushing after if that happens, oh man. But yeah, I want it so bad for him too, because he's finally healthy, and if the attitude he's exuded, you know, matches his play on the field.
100%.
Clemson's going to be Clemson's passing offense will be. It'll be what we want it to be. So
again, they got to go out there and do it. They got to get that separation. They got to catch those contested passes. All that has to still happen. But I do think the guys are in the room for Clemson to have a much more explosive offense this season. Doesn't mean it's 100% going to happen. I just think they have the guys to make it happen.
Absolutely. All right. I want to try to let's try to speed run some of these because we have a lot starred. So I want to get to as many as possible. Poor Spout 79 says, I don't even think Tyler is the reason why Dabo is putting more of it. Tyler from Spartanburg. Oh, okay. Tyler from Spartanburg is putting more demand on the people inside the building. I think Tyler is partly the reason, but I think what really did it was starting for. Yeah, and absolutely, we said that a ton. Like Tyler from Spartanburg, like that was a convenient coincidence as far as the timing of when it happened. But the week, like before his call-in show, Dabo was tearing into everybody that week.
Yeah, there were
week in practice. Yeah. Everybody was getting it. The coaching staff, the players, the janitor, like everybody was getting it in that facility. Yeah. It was Dabo went scorched. Like it wasn't even the Tyler from Spartanburg call. Maybe I think that was leftover frustration just from everything that he had already exuded. Like I think that just bled into the call. Tyler from Spartanburg isn't the reason Clemson won the final 5 games. It was because he let some people know, listen, I love you. I believe in you. I want you to be successful, but you can go find somewhere else if you're not going to do your job and do it well. Yeah. And that went for coaches and players alike. So, right. And it was a lot of very uncomfortable conversations were had at that point in time last season. And and I think the players, you saw the players respond. Obviously, mm-hmm. and like you said earlier, it wasn't pretty. Like the final score against Notre Dame, you think, okay, they scored 31 points, okay, against a good Notre Dame defense. That's good. What didn't play out exactly like that? I mean, your passing game was pretty much non-existent. It was Phil Maffa to death. And the defense came through in some big spots, got you a defensive score that made that score look a little bit, but that was not a very pretty football game. The North Carolina game, you were on the ropes early, right? You were really on the ropes early. Well, I skipped a game. Georgia Tech, you played. That was like the best performance overall during that 5-game stretch. I mean, you were scoring points. Defense was creating. And you were running the football. Cade played pretty well. North Carolina game, you absolutely you were on the ropes early, but the defense had to be like that strip at the goal line by Nate Wiggins that changed the game. Like if you don't have Nate Wiggins, you don't win that game. And then South Carolina was just a defense slug. You dominated in the trenches, but offensively you were still pretty inept. I mean, you were dealing with the flu, but still it was a very very unimpressive performance overall from the offense. And then obviously we know what it took to win that Kentucky game. So it was not pretty, but I think it was a pride moment for this program. And I think that's the mentality. Like I said, that's the mentality they've carried into this, because I think some people think Dabo doesn't care and it's like he's fine with the sink ship, the ship sinking. as long as he gets to stick to his morals. No, that's not. Dabo is as big of a competitor as there is in college football, and I think he's relayed and he's relayed that message to his players, to his staff. There is a different energy and fire from everything I've been told than there's been the past few years. Mm-hmm. He hears the disrespect too, and he doesn't like being talked about like, oh, Dabo can't compete in today's college football anymore.
No doubt.
You don't win 2 national championships without having an ego, without being prideful, and I think Clemson has carried a lot of that into this season. So we'll see. We'll see if that translates to success tomorrow.
Yep.
I said I was going to speed run that, and then I went on a monologue. See, that's how I get.
It's all good.
Okay. For real this time, we're going to speed run this. Christian says, I have high hopes for Shelton Lewis, hoping he's not out too long. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big year for him as a second-year player. Hope he can play.
It'll be a good one if he can get healthy.
Yeah. Ronald says, could Clemson's offense actually be Oh, no, it's a different question. Could Clemson's offense actually be much improved from last year? But I did. Did he? I guess I'm tripping. I think I answered that twice. Okay. Sean D says, I think it'll be a close game, 20-27 UGA. I think that score is well within the range of possibility.
Yep.
Tig says our return guy is Tyler from Spartanburg. Yeah. He's a poster on I know he's a poster on the message boards over on Tiger Illustrated. But Dabo mentioned him during the interview. He said it's all love, and he said that he said that Tyler is one of the best fans there is. So seems to be that they squashed the beef or whatever.
Look, man, I know a lot of people talk about Tyler from Spartanburg and all that, but like at the end of the day, if you're Dabo, like, yeah, you don't want to field a call like that.
Yeah,
but you have to understand, like, from a fan's perspective, like, we're ultra invested and we care and emotions get high. And, so I think at the end of the day, if you're Dabo, after you get past the emotions of probably being pretty pissed off fielding a phone call like that, as anybody would, you take any college football coach, they're not going to be happy fielding a phone call like that.
Yeah.
But when you step back and the emotions calm down, you're like, I mean, I get it.
He's passionate. Passionate.
He's passionate.
Cares about this program as much as anybody. So
right, yeah.
It was a nice little ending to that little saga, I guess.
For sure.
Christian says, "Please no fake punts, no field goal." Yeah, I'm good on that.
No sugar huddles in the middle of a freaking kickoff.
Let's not even bring that up. Christian says, "Looks like AJ Green best year had 963 yards his freshman season." Yeah, it's still crazy.
Close. He was close.
He was close, but no cigar.
He needed one more game.
Yeah. Adam Watford says, crazy thing is Randall is built like DK Metcalf, but hasn't shown much. Yeah, that's. I think he came along a little bit towards the end of last year. Obviously, I think he had a really tremendous bowl game. Didn't really show in the stats, but he made some really big catches in that game. So I'm hoping he parlays that into a big year this year. Now that it feels like his confidence matches, his physical ability. Tiger Tom says, also looking to see Stellato and Wesco get a chance to step up. I'd like to see them show something as well. Yeah, and I think you'll see both of them a decent bit, especially Wesco. They consider a starter really.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like he'll be like number one in the depth chart, but
he's in the rotation.
He's gonna be there. I think he's gonna get plenty of burn. He's a guy that came in ready to go. And Stellato, he's proven to be a steady contributor, a safety blanket for Cade at times. Just him staying healthy has always been the issue. But I hope to see. I think you'll see both of them get opportunities to make plays in this game. Tiger Tom says, will we ever see a return to the national championship era air raid offense? We have a fairly solid 6-man receiver room. Will it take a better quarterback? Well, we weren't running the air raid back in the championship years, but
Right.
We could throw the ball.
Yeah, I get his point. We were very explosive.
Yeah, very explosive.
So maybe we'll change it to, will the explosiveness of the offense return?
Yeah. That remains to be seen.
Yeah,
I seem to think we will. I think based on the personnel and the coaching upgrades that you've made, but that can only carry you so much. And maybe that's all me extrapolating and not necessarily. We have a lot to go on. So maybe it is. Maybe we look back, in December and Cade just looks more of the same as last year. That's not what I haven't gotten the vibe that he's the same as last year, but it certainly could be.
We hope not, because if he is, we're not going to have the season that we want to have.
No.
But in my opinion, the ingredients are there for the explosiveness to return. Now, will it? We shall see.
We shall see. And that's what you pay Garrett Riley, $1.5 or almost $2 million a year to.
He's got to figure it out. He's one of the
figure it out.
He's one of the top paid assistants in the country. Got to figure it out.
Yeah, he does, and he doesn't have the personnel. I don't think he has the personnel excuse this year. Yeah, that's for sure. We gave him a lot of we gave him the slack for last year because they weren't able to run what they wanted to run. This year, this is his offense. It always was his offense, but this is the idealized version of what we want what he wants this offense to look like. Right. From a personnel standpoint.
Yep.
So we'll see. Adam says maybe Cole Turner would be a good fit at return. Yeah, he's had some experience. I don't know. He hasn't repped a ton there, so you wonder if he, being consistent catching, but speed wise and athleticism wise, yeah, he'd be a great fit. Especially since he's not going to be relied on heavily to be a heavy contributor, but he does have that. He does have that wiggle. He has that speed. I think he'd be a good, if you get him ready for that role. That would be a candidate for sure. That's JT Super Chat. Already hit that. Unbelievable says, do you think Dabo can still be competitive as a coach? Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
What I think Dabo
necessarily mean. Yeah, he's one of the most competitive people there is. Yeah. And I know he says a lot of things and he rubs people the wrong way. And there's a lot of people out there that really dislike Dabo, but the man's a competitor through and through. I 100%. If he's not a competitor, he doesn't fire Brandon Streeter after year one. Yeah. A guy that played for him, a guy that's been in the program forever. He doesn't get fired. His neighbor, he doesn't get fired year one.
Yeah.
He doesn't fire the offensive line coach, Thomas, and bring in Matt Luke. He doesn't fire kind of let the defensive end coach step away and bring in Chris Rump, right? These changes that have been made over the past 2 seasons, I don't think if he was just okay with status quo and, hey, I've built up this, this cachet with the Clemson leadership and the board of trustees and all these people, and I'm just going to coast it out and make as much money as I can and ride off to the sunset. You don't fire those people that you are truly friends with and you've known for so long if that's what your plan is. You only fire those people and bring in people like Garrett Riley and Matt Luke and Chris Rump if you're trying to get back to the mountaintop. You're trying to compete. You're trying to make your program better. So those moves, to me, if you're not trying to be a competitor, they don't make any sense.
All right. Couple more, and then we'll get on out of here. Jay says, my question is to the Clemson pickers. Who's the MVP if Clemson wins other than Klubnik? Oh, well, that sucks because, I think that's who it would be. I think that's
Antonio Williams.
Need a performance. Antonio Williams was my next. I don't see a world where Phil Maffa goes crazy in this game.
No. I don't think he'll – no. I think he could have a decent game, but he's not going to, He ain't
I
gonna
don't
have
think we're gonna look back and say he ran for like 20
Yeah,
20 carries, 140 yards, and
yeah.
two
He's not
touchdowns.
gonna have like a Notre Dame type game. But
Yeah,
if I had to guess anybody other than Cade on the offensive side of the ball, it'd be Antonio Williams.
yeah. I like that. That would be my pick as well. Because he still is. I feel pretty. He's your best.
You hear the defensive backs talking about Antonio Williams. They're like, yeah, he's different this year.
Yeah,
he's different. So
I'm with you, Antonio Williams. Speaking of Antonio Williams, Christian says, "Who do I start in fantasy? Dominic Lovett or Antonio Williams?"
You already know.
You already know. I've already made enough more picks. Yeah. We just like.
I don't care if I did pick them to win. I'm still not picking no Georgia receiver. You better put Antonio Williams in there.
Give me Antonio Williams. It's Antonio Williams. Tig says, check out my avatar, Clemson's new look in 2028. Now, not with Dabo as the head coach.
Is that a chrome?
Yeah, it's chrome, purple, paw. Yeah,
it looks nice, but
no chance.
I'm not I'm very partial to the Clemson helmet. I don't really want to see any changes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate like one game a year, like that military appreciation. I wouldn't hate doing like a special helmet for the military appreciation day when we pull out the purple unis. I wouldn't hate it then, but like I don't ever want to turn into like these teams that always do these gimmick uniforms all the time. Like, I don't like Tennessee does it a lot now.
Yeah, I agree mostly. I wouldn't mind a white helmet. We've never done that. I like if Clemson were to implement, I would not be against that because I do think like a white helmet with like an orange paw or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool. And you do like all whites.
My favorite Clemson uniform is the orange pants, the white jersey, and the orange helmet. I love that combo.
Classic look. Classic look.
That combo.
That one doesn't go wrong.
It looks so clean, man. Like it looks clean.
It's that's the classic. Like I never want to see that like be out of like fall in the obscurity and the like that has to be that's your staple right there. Of course the orange orange jersey, orange breeches, all that. Like we do that. We do that. Like, those are good too. But that look is classic. So I never want to see that go. But I wouldn't mind like a white helmet, like to we bring out every once in a while. Like I'm a little more liberal with the uniform thing, but I never want the core look to change. Ever.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not completely against like a special game here, special game there helmet. I mentioned the military appreciation. Clemson always does like a big thing with that. So I'd be cool with maybe making some sort of special helmet for that game. But like, I just love the traditional Clemson. I think it's such a clean, like classic looking helmet. It's so recognizable that Clemson, that white Clemson paw and that orange helmet is so recognizable.
Yeah. Classic. It's our brand. Like that's the core.
It is. Yeah. I mean,
and to close us off with we'll take one from a Georgia fan.
Oh yeah, that's fitting. We end up with SEC dog.
Yeah, he says I think Clemson and Georgia will have a great year no matter what happens week one. They'll both get tougher moving forward. I 100% agree with that. Like I picked Clemson to win not because I feel like Georgia has gotten any worse. I feel like Clemson has gotten better, and that could prove to be really wrong tomorrow. So, but I do think that either way, I think both teams have a really strong outlook for this year. And Georgia, obviously, being the consensus number one team, all the talent they have, like they're going to be squarely in the playoff. Like they have a tough schedule, but I'm not even worried about it with them. Like I think they're going to be in the playoff, and they're going to be one of the at worst a top three team in the SEC. Like if the bottom fall, like if they drop a couple games, like maybe Texas or Alabama is higher up, and I'm not worried about Georgia though. As a national championship contender, that team is with what they have. They'll be in that mix. So
this game this game does not matter as far as everything, regardless win or lose, everything
outlook
in front of you for both teams. It's a non-con game. It's early in the season, so either way, whatever happens, either team has time to recover and put a nice season together. And come season's end, the win will virtually, or the loss will virtually be forgotten if you take care of business the rest of the way.
And on the flip side, the winner, like they get that's a quality win. Like
that's a quality win, yeah.
It's like, oh man, that you get to hold on to for the entire season.
That's the only loss that team has, or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I like either way. SEC Dog makes a good point. Both teams will be just fine. And you want your team to be challenged. So I'm all for it. I think Clemson needs to be challenged. And here we go. So I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. All right. That was a hell of a show. We go long a good bit anyway, but
yeah.
This was a lot of fun. It's just great to be back, man. Doing like we've been talking all off season. Oh man, injuries, recruiting. Oh my God, who's showing what in camp, and what are you hearing, and what's going on? Who's doing what? Who's looking good? What are we worried about? Like now, all of that goes out the window because tomorrow at noon, we actually get to see these teams in pads going at it, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. College football has officially returned. And as a Clemson fan, it officially marks the return of college football when we get to see our Tigers run out on the field and play a game. And none bigger than this one tomorrow. This is a huge game. Two top 15 teams. Georgia, obviously the number one team in the country. Clemson sitting around 14. So it's going to be a great game. I can't wait to see. I saw a couple people in the live chat. I think SEC Dog was the one saying it. Hope for health for both teams, both before and during the game. You never want to see people get hurt. You hope for a clean game in that way. And I cannot freaking wait for this game. I'm so excited. I'm so jacked up. I know we play at noon, but noon is going to come so slow tomorrow because I'm just ready to watch this game.
I'm going to be doing backflips, man.
Man. It's going to be, I'm going to be like, all right, come on, College game day. Like, let's go. Let's get it over with. Let's get to the game. But super excited. Luckily, we don't have to wait any longer than noon. Hey, all of you guys in here, we got 50 people in the live chat. Come hang out with me and Jordan tomorrow around 3:30. We will be doing a post-game live video. Win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter what happens. Me and Jordan will be there. So please come there, join us, talk trash, or come help us celebrate the win if that's what happens. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. Consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do this show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. We also do the post-game live videos immediately following every Clemson game. So tune into that as well. Thank everybody for showing up tonight. We had 70 or 80 people in here for a good portion of it. So we've had really high numbers tonight. Appreciate everyone getting into the comment section. Thank you all for showing up. And we will see you tomorrow after the game. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.